For over 4,000 years, the sands of Egypt have concealed some of the most baffling mysteries known to mankind. Ancient monuments stand as silent sentinels, their secrets locked away by time. But what if we've been missing something? What if the truths buried beneath the pyramids, temples, and tombs are far more astonishing than we ever imagined? The enigma of Egypt isn't just about grand structures or legendary pharaohs. It's about what we still can't explain. Lost cities swallowed by the desert, forgotten rituals whispered about in ancient texts, and artifacts that defy our understanding of technology. Each discovery raises more questions than answers, leaving us to wonder, what are they hiding? From the mysterious origins of the Sphinx to the unexplained powers of the Dendera Light, we're on the edge of something monumental. An unraveling of history that challenges everything we know. Tonight, we embark on a journey into the heart of Egypt's greatest unsolved mysteries. So sit back, relax, and let's dive deeper into the secrets that have remained buried for millennia. In the heart of Alexandria, beneath the bustling streets and the weight of modern history, there lies a riddle that has baffled archaeologists, historians, and adventurers for centuries. Cleopatra VII, the last queen of Egypt, has been immortalized by her beauty, her political acumen, and her passionate alliances with Rome's most powerful men, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Yet, for all the legend that surrounds her life, her final resting place remains an unsolved mystery. The location of Cleopatra's tomb has never been definitively found. Despite centuries of search, the queen's final resting place, like the woman herself, is elusive, buried somewhere in the shifting sands of time and history. It is said that Cleopatra chose to be buried alongside Mark Antony, her lover and co-ruler, who died with her in 30 BCE after the defeat of their forces by Octavian, later known as Emperor Augustus. The story of their deaths, famously depicted in Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, is one of passion and tragedy. After their defeat, both Antony and Cleopatra took their own lives. According to ancient texts, they were buried together in a grand tomb, a tomb that was meant to reflect their greatness, their love, and their rule over the ancient world. But where is this tomb? What became of this monument to one of history's most storied couples? Ancient historians, such as Plutarch and Strabo, offer tantalizing hints, but nothing concrete. Plutarch tells us that Cleopatra and Antony were interred in a tomb which they had built for themselves, and it was to be located in a temple near the harbor of Alexandria. But beyond these scant references, the trail goes cold. The city of Alexandria itself has been an active site for archaeological excavations for centuries. It was a center of learning and culture in antiquity, home to the legendary Library of Alexandria and the Great Lighthouse. Yet, the tomb of Cleopatra, despite the many attempts to locate it, has remained stubbornly out of reach. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, excavation efforts focused on areas around the Alexandria harbor, where ancient texts suggested the tomb might be. However, these explorations yielded little, only fragments of statuary, pottery, and coins, which did little to narrow down the tomb's exact location. Some researchers believe that the tomb might lie beneath the waters of the harbor, destroyed by the violent earthquakes that struck Alexandria in the years following Cleopatra's death. The waters rose, swallowing parts of the city, along with its monuments. Yet, other theories persist. Some believe that Cleopatra's tomb was hidden not in Alexandria, but further inland, perhaps near the famed temple of Taposiris Magna, located about 30 kilometers west of the city. In recent years, archaeologists have focused their efforts on this site. The temple, dedicated to the god Osiris, has yielded some fascinating finds, including statues and inscriptions that seem to suggest a connection to Cleopatra and her reign. But no tomb has been uncovered, at least not yet. Why Taposiris Magna? Theories about this temple's connection to Cleopatra are rooted in ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Osiris, the god of death and rebirth, was intimately tied to Egypt's royal family. Cleopatra, in her quest for eternal legacy, would have likely sought a tomb associated with this god. Some speculate that the queen's tomb could be hidden deep within the catacombs beneath the temple, or that it was concealed deliberately to avoid desecration by those who might seek to erase her from history. The idea that Cleopatra's tomb could be hidden at Taposiris Magna has gained traction in recent years, particularly after the discovery of several fascinating artifacts, including a lead sarcophagus with inscriptions that appear to refer to Cleopatra's lineage. Yet, these findings are far from definitive. No tomb has yet been found, and the search continues. Meanwhile, the search for Cleopatra's final resting place remains an elusive puzzle. Theories and speculation abound, yet each new discovery seems to raise as many questions as it answers. Could Cleopatra have chosen to be buried in a more obscure location to avoid the fate of other royal tombs, plundered and destroyed over the centuries? Or was her tomb simply lost to time, destroyed by the same forces that caused the great city of Alexandria to disappear beneath the waves? There is also the matter of Cleopatra's legacy. While she was undoubtedly one of the most powerful women in history, she was also a queen of Egypt at a time when Rome's shadow loomed large. Her reign marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of Egypt's absorption into the Roman Empire. It is possible that, in her final act, Cleopatra sought to ensure that her tomb and the wealth it contained remained hidden from the prying eyes of the new imperial power that had overtaken her world. After all, her alliance with Caesar and Antony had not spared her from the whims of Roman politics. Might she have feared her tomb being looted by the very empire she had fought against? Then there is the issue of historical preservation. The tomb of Alexander the Great, the very man whose legacy Cleopatra sought to protect, is itself lost to history. While it is believed that Alexander was buried in a grand tomb in Alexandria, its exact location has never been discovered. Could the tomb of Cleopatra have suffered the same fate as Alexander's, lost to time, hidden in plain sight, or wiped out by the inevitable forces of nature? Today, the search continues. Archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters alike comb through ancient texts, modern technology, and satellite imagery in the hopes of uncovering Cleopatra's final resting place. And yet, despite all the advancements in our understanding of ancient Egypt, the tomb of Cleopatra remains as elusive as ever. Why does it remain hidden? What might it tell us about the queen and the world she ruled? For now, the answers remain just out of reach, lost beneath centuries of sand, sea, and silence. The tomb of Cleopatra stands as a haunting reminder that, in the vast tapestry of history, there are still threads that refuse to be woven into the fabric of our understanding. And so, the mystery endures. As we journey further into the depths of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries, we find ourselves standing before a perplexing puzzle that has challenged our understanding of ancient technologies for centuries. In the heart of the Dendera temple complex, near modern-day Kenya, lies a strange and enigmatic relief that has confounded archaeologists, historians, and theorists alike. Known as the Dendera Light, this curious carving has led to one of the most enduring debates about the nature of ancient Egyptian knowledge and their technological capabilities. The Dendera Temple, dedicated to the goddess Hathor, is a monumental site, a place where the ancient Egyptians celebrated the divine and the cosmic. Yet, it is not the vast halls or towering pillars of the temple that have captured the imagination of so many, but rather a small, seemingly innocuous carving found in one of its chambers. The relief, sometimes referred to as the light bulb of Dendera, depicts a mysterious object resembling a large bulbous shape, from which a serpent-like figure emerges. This figure appears to be held by a man, and its other end seems to touch a lotus-like flower. At first glance, it might seem like an odd decoration or an ancient symbol, but upon closer inspection, something striking becomes apparent. The object looks eerily similar to a modern light bulb. The implications are profound. How could the ancient Egyptians, with their rudimentary tools and technology, have depicted something so strikingly modern? The relief is not alone. Similar carvings found in the temple suggest that the object could be some sort of ancient device, one that was somehow capable of producing light. But what was it? Was it a mere symbolic representation, or could the ancient Egyptians have understood principles of electricity, light, and energy far beyond what we have traditionally believed? The standard explanation among Egyptologists is that the carvings simply depict the symbolic and mythological aspects of Hathor's divine power. Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and fertility, was often associated with the cosmic order, and her symbols, like the scepter and the ankh, were often depicted with profound spiritual meaning. The light in the carving, therefore, could represent the divine light that connects the heavens with the earth, a metaphor for the goddess's power. In this interpretation, the serpent and the bulb-like shape may represent the symbolic activation of life or the flow of cosmic energy, rather than anything related to electricity. Yet, this explanation fails to satisfy everyone. Over the years, a more speculative theory has emerged, one that suggests the Dendera relief depicts an ancient form of electric lighting. Proponents of this idea point to the oddity of the carving's resemblance to a light bulb, with its bulbous shape and the tendril-like serpent emerging from it. Could the ancient Egyptians have harnessed some form of electricity or advanced technology that we are only now beginning to understand? If so, how is it possible, and what else might they have known? Some theorists have even suggested that the Dendera Light represents evidence of an ancient form of electric lamp, one that could have been used in temples or sacred spaces to illuminate the dark chambers of Egypt's monuments. According to these ideas, the relief could be showing an early version of an electrical arc lamp, or some form of electrochemical lighting, powered by a rudimentary battery or natural resources. In this view, the mysterious serpent emerging from the bulb might represent the flow of electricity, much like modern cables carry power to light bulbs today. One of the more intriguing aspects of this theory is the suggestion that the Egyptians might have used a natural electrolyte, such as copper or brass, to create a primitive form of electrical current. Some have even pointed to the famous Baghdad battery, an artifact believed by some to be an ancient galvanic cell, as evidence that ancient civilizations might have had a rudimentary understanding of electrical principles. Could the Egyptians have had a similar device? Was the Dendera Light not just a religious symbol, but rather a practical tool? Despite the intriguing nature of these theories, it is important to note that there is no direct evidence to support the claim that the ancient Egyptians had access to electricity. No surviving artifacts or tools have been found that could account for such technology. The fact remains that Egyptologists have yet to uncover any hard evidence suggesting that the Egyptians were able to manipulate electricity in the way that modern society does. The idea of an ancient electrical device remains speculative, as much a matter of wonder as it is of evidence. And yet, this doesn't mean that the mystery is easily dismissed. Could the Dendera Light represent an ancient technology that we've simply forgotten? Could the relief not be symbolic but literal, pointing to a lost understanding of natural forces? What if the Egyptians had knowledge, whether derived from their own discoveries or perhaps even from an outside source, that we can barely comprehend today? The suggestion that ancient civilizations may have once possessed technologies that have since been lost is not entirely outside the realm of possibility. After all, there are numerous examples throughout history of civilizations whose achievements were forgotten or erased. Whether through war, natural disasters, or the passage of time. The question of whether the Dendera Light is evidence of an unknown technology or simply a symbolic representation of the goddess Hathor's divine power will likely remain unanswered. But what is clear is that the relief raises more questions than it answers. Was it a depiction of some form of technology hidden in plain sight? Or is it a mystical symbol, part of the ancient Egyptians' rich and complex religious worldview? Some even propose that the depiction of the light bulb-like object is not necessarily an ancient Egyptian invention, but the result of ancient knowledge passed down from a lost civilization, or, as some suggest, extraterrestrial beings. Could the ancient Egyptians have been the recipients of knowledge that was not of this earth? While such ideas remain firmly in the realm of speculation, they nonetheless add a layer of intrigue to an already fascinating mystery. Whatever the truth may be, the Dendera Light remains one of the most enigmatic and thought-provoking aspects of ancient Egyptian culture. It serves as a testament to the ingenuity and imagination of a civilization that continues to captivate the world with its secrets. The question remains, did the Egyptians understand something we have lost, or is this simply the result of our own misinterpretation of ancient symbols? As we continue our journey through Egypt's mysteries, the answer to this question may one day emerge. Until then, the Dendera Light remains a brilliant, flickering puzzle, its true nature yet to be revealed. As we continue our exploration of the ancient mysteries of Egypt, we find ourselves standing before one of the most iconic and enduring symbols of this magnificent civilization, the Great Sphinx of Giza. With its lion's body and human head, the Sphinx has long been a subject of fascination, attracting scholars, tourists, and mystics alike. Yet, beneath its enigmatic expression lies a riddle that has puzzled experts for centuries, one that may challenge our understanding of ancient Egypt itself. The Sphinx, carved from a single mass of limestone, has stood for millennia, facing east toward the rising sun. It guards the entrance to the Giza Plateau, an area already rich with monumental architecture and history. Despite its grandeur and significance, the exact purpose of the Sphinx remains unclear. Was it built as a tribute to the pharaoh Khafra, whose pyramid looms nearby, or was it a manifestation of deeper, perhaps even cosmic principles tied to Egyptian religion and mythology? While these questions are important, a far more perplexing issue has come to the forefront in recent years: the apparent signs of water erosion on the Sphinx's body. Some researchers suggest that these signs are the result of heavy rainfall, an environmental factor that would not have been present during the time of Khafra's reign in the 4th dynasty. This idea challenges long-held assumptions about the age of the Sphinx, suggesting that it could be far older than previously thought. If true, this would have profound implications for our understanding of ancient Egyptian history, and possibly even human civilization itself. The theory of water erosion was first popularized by the American geologist Robert Schoch in the early 1990s. Schoch, after studying the weathering patterns on the Sphinx's body, noticed unusual deep grooves and weathered features that, in his view, could not have been caused by wind and sand alone, which are the usual culprits in desert erosion. Instead, the pattern of erosion appeared to align more closely with the effects of prolonged, heavy rainfall, something that would be highly unusual in the arid environment of the Giza Plateau today. According to Schoch and other proponents of this theory, the type of erosion observed on the Sphinx suggests that the monument could have been built thousands of years earlier than the reign of Khafra, perhaps as far back as 10,000 years or more. This would place the Sphinx's construction at the tail end of the last ice age, a period when the region of Egypt, which was then much wetter and more temperate, could have experienced significant rainfall. Such a theory, if substantiated, would rewrite the timeline of ancient Egyptian history and suggest that an unknown, advanced civilization existed in the region long before the rise of the pharaohs. Skeptics of Schoch's theory, however, argue that the erosion patterns on the Sphinx could be the result of other, more mundane factors. Traditional Egyptologists have long maintained that the Sphinx was indeed built by Khafre around 4,500 years ago. They suggest that the erosion could have been caused by a combination of natural weathering processes, including wind, sand, and even salt from the surrounding desert environment. According to this view, the Sphinx's appearance is not the result of a lost civilization or some ancient cataclysmic event, but simply the effect of time and the elements on a monument constructed thousands of years ago. There is also a historical argument to consider. The idea of a much older Sphinx aligns with the so-called lost civilization hypothesis, a theory that posits the existence of an advanced society that predates known history by thousands of years. This theory suggests that humanity may have experienced periods of incredible technological and cultural advancement in the distant past, advancements that were lost or erased through time, perhaps due to a global catastrophe or the ravages of nature. If the Sphinx were truly built around 10,000 years ago, it would lend weight to this hypothesis, suggesting that ancient Egypt, or at least parts of it, were far more advanced than we give them credit for. Another important element of this debate is the geological composition of the Giza Plateau itself. The limestone bedrock from which the Sphinx is carved is known to be particularly susceptible to erosion, especially when exposed to moisture. But could the erosion of the Sphinx truly be the result of a much older climate? Or could it be part of a much more complex environmental history? The idea that Egypt was once a much wetter and more temperate region is not without merit. In fact, recent studies of the Sahara Desert suggest that around 10,000 years ago, the region was a lush savanna, teeming with life. Could it be that the Sphinx, built during this wetter climate, was later subjected to the scorching heat and dryness of the modern desert? As we delve deeper into the mystery of the Sphinx, we must also consider the implications of these theories. If the Sphinx is indeed much older than we have been led to believe, what does this say about the civilization that created it? Did the Egyptians inherit this knowledge from a long-forgotten culture, or was the Sphinx part of their own ancient wisdom? Could the Sphinx itself have been designed as more than just a monument, perhaps even as a repository of ancient knowledge or a gateway to a deeper understanding of the cosmos? Its alignment with the stars and its positioning on the Giza Plateau suggest a highly sophisticated understanding of astronomy, geometry, and the natural world. Could the Sphinx, in some way, be a testament to a forgotten science, one that was not limited to Egypt, but shared across the ancient world? In the end, the mystery of the Sphinx's age and the nature of its erosion is far from solved. The theory of water erosion, while compelling, is not universally accepted, and much more research needs to be done to fully understand the forces at play. Whether the Sphinx is an ancient monument built during the last ice age, or simply the product of a more recent Egyptian civilization, one thing remains clear: the Sphinx holds secrets that, even after centuries of study, are still waiting to be uncovered. The question remains: is the Sphinx a product of ancient wisdom, designed by a civilization that had unlocked secrets of the natural world that we have yet to fully comprehend? Or is it simply the result of erosion, time, and the unrelenting forces of nature? As we continue to explore Egypt's greatest mysteries, one thing is certain: the Sphinx still guards its secrets, and the answers may be buried deeper than we ever imagined. As we delve deeper into the heart of Egypt's ancient mysteries, we encounter a story that has captivated imaginations for centuries, a tale of beauty, power, tragedy, and the inexorable forces of fate. The story of Nefertiti, the great royal wife of the Pharaoh Akhenaten, has remained shrouded in mystery, drawing both admiration and intrigue. But behind her legacy of grandeur lies a darker, more unsettling question. What really happened to Nefertiti, and could her fate be intertwined with the so-called Curse of the Pharaohs? Nefertiti's name, meaning the beautiful one has come, has been immortalized in the iconic limestone bust found in Berlin, a symbol of her extraordinary beauty and influence. But there is much more to her story than just her striking appearance. Nefertiti was not merely a queen, she was a powerful political figure, perhaps even co-regent with her husband Akhenaten, during a time of great upheaval in ancient Egypt. Together, they ushered in a religious revolution, worshipping the sun disk Aten and moving Egypt away from traditional polytheistic beliefs. This unprecedented shift would change the course of Egyptian history, leaving behind both monumental works and unanswered questions. For centuries, Nefertiti's fate has been one of Egyptology's greatest mysteries. After her reign as queen, she seemingly disappears from the historical record. Some suggest she may have died relatively young, while others propose a more controversial theory, that she assumed the role of pharaoh after Akhenaten's death, ruling under the name of Smenkhkare. However, evidence supporting this idea is scarce, and many scholars remain skeptical. The true details of her life after the height of her reign remain a tantalizing puzzle. But perhaps more intriguing than Nefertiti's disappearance is the haunting idea of the Curse of the Pharaohs, a concept deeply rooted in Egypt's ancient burial practices and beliefs about the afterlife. The curse is said to be a supernatural force that strikes down those who disturb the tombs or resting places of Egypt's kings and queens. While the curse is perhaps most famously associated with the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922, when several members of the excavation team met untimely deaths, its origins stretch back much further, and it is tied to the burial practices of the pharaohs themselves. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, the dead were not merely laid to rest, but were placed in tombs filled with everything they would need for the afterlife, including treasures, servants, and protective spells. The tombs of the pharaohs were sacred spaces designed to ensure that the king or queen would be well equipped for the journey to the next world. Disturbing these tombs was thought to provoke the wrath of the gods, and thus the curse was born, a curse said to strike down those who dared to desecrate the resting places of the dead. The idea of the curse takes on an eerie weight when we consider the case of Nefertiti. Unlike many pharaohs, her tomb has never been definitively located. In fact, for over a century, Egyptologists have searched in vain for any trace of her final resting place. Many believe that her tomb lies hidden somewhere in the Valley of the Kings or in a secret chamber, but so far, there has been no breakthrough. Could it be that Nefertiti's tomb is protected by more than just the sands of time? Might there be a deeper, perhaps supernatural, reason for its continued concealment? One of the most compelling elements of Nefertiti's story comes from the mysterious discovery of a painted limestone fragment in the tomb of Tutankhamun. The fragment depicts a woman with a headdress strikingly similar to Nefertiti's, suggesting that she may have been involved in the creation of the tomb, or even that she was in some way connected to Tutankhamun's short reign. The fragment has fueled speculation that Nefertiti was not only a queen, but also an influential figure in the late years of the Amarna period. This has led some to propose that Nefertiti's sudden disappearance from the historical record might not have been a natural death, but a consequence of political intrigue, betrayal, or even an untimely demise tied to the curse that surrounds the royal tombs. The concept of a curse seems even more fitting when we consider the broader context of Nefertiti's era. Akhenaten's religious revolution was controversial and divisive. It angered the priesthood of Amun, who had long held sway over Egypt's political and religious life. The new worship of Aten was seen by many as a direct affront to the gods of Egypt, and the upheaval caused by the change was felt deeply throughout the land. In the wake of Akhenaten's death, many believe that there was an attempt to erase his legacy, along with that of his queen, Nefertiti. If she were to have been involved in the rule after Akhenaten's death, could this have led to her eventual downfall? And, if her tomb truly lies hidden? Could it be that some form of divine retribution is at play, protecting her final resting place from discovery? The theory of a curse of Nefertiti gains further weight when we look at the broader history of Egypt's royal tombs. The tomb of Tutankhamun, perhaps the most famous discovery in Egyptology, is the subject of its own curse legend. But this was not the first tomb to be sealed with protective magic. The tombs of many earlier pharaohs were said to be guarded by powerful spells meant to keep the dead from being disturbed. Could Nefertiti's tomb be similarly protected, not just by the forces of nature, but by a supernatural power designed to ensure that her secrets would remain forever hidden? While the idea of a curse surrounding the tomb of Nefertiti may seem fanciful, it is worth noting that the search for her continues to this day. In 2015, British archaeologist Nicholas Reeves made headlines with a controversial theory suggesting that Nefertiti's tomb could be hidden behind a secret wall in the tomb of Tutankhamun. The discovery of this supposed hidden chamber would be nothing short of groundbreaking, offering a potential key to unlocking one of Egypt's greatest mysteries. But whether this theory holds any weight, and whether Nefertiti's tomb is indeed waiting to be uncovered, remains to be seen. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Curse of the Pharaohs is that it challenges our understanding of history itself. If Nefertiti's tomb is indeed hidden or cursed, could there be other lost monuments of the past that remain obscured, protected by ancient magic, or forgotten by time? And could the truth of her fate, whether one of death, political intrigue, or something more mysterious, still be waiting to be revealed? As we reflect on Nefertiti's life and the legacy she left behind, one thing is clear. The answers to her fate remain just out of reach. The curse of the pharaohs, like the queen herself, continues to loom over us, an enduring enigma, perhaps waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets. As we continue our journey through the ancient mysteries of Egypt, we now turn our attention to one of the most fascinating artifacts ever unearthed from the tomb of the boy king, Tutankhamun. Among the many treasures found within his burial chamber, golden masks, elaborate jewelry, and ceremonial regalia, there lies a single item that has sparked both awe and confusion among scholars for decades: an iron dagger. At first glance, the dagger is a remarkable example of ancient craftsmanship. The handle is adorned with intricate designs, reflecting the skilled artistry of the time, but it's the blade that truly stands out. Unlike the typical bronze or copper weapons of the era, the blade of Tutankhamun's dagger is made of iron, a material that, by all accounts, should not have been available to the ancient Egyptians in such a refined form. Iron, at the time, was a rare and mysterious metal, known to be difficult to work with. It is this very anachronism that raises the central question: how did the ancient Egyptians, specifically during Tutankhamun's reign in the 14th century BCE, come to possess such an advanced and seemingly out-of-place material? Iron had been known in Egypt before, but it was not commonly used in tools or weapons, which were primarily made of copper or bronze. The timeline of iron's widespread use is usually placed several centuries later, with evidence of ironworking becoming more common only during the first millennium BCE. So the presence of a finely crafted iron dagger in Tutankhamun's tomb has baffled researchers for years. Could the ancient Egyptians have possessed the secret of iron smelting centuries earlier than previously thought? Or could this dagger have come from an entirely different, far more enigmatic source? The first hint at an answer came from the most unusual feature of this dagger: its composition. In 2005, a group of scientists, using advanced scanning techniques, analyzed the blade of Tutankhamun's dagger and discovered something that would turn the story of this artifact upside down. The iron in the dagger was not of terrestrial origin. In fact, the analysis revealed that the iron came from a meteorite. The implications of this discovery are staggering. If the dagger's blade is made from iron that fell from the sky, specifically from a meteorite, this would mean that Tutankhamun's dagger is not just a rare and exquisite object, but a piece of material from beyond Earth itself. Such a discovery would lend the dagger an almost otherworldly significance, suggesting that the ancient Egyptians, or at least the makers of the dagger, had access to materials that were not only rare, but cosmically extraordinary. This revelation challenges our conventional understanding of the technological and cultural boundaries of ancient Egypt. Meteoric iron had been prized by many ancient civilizations, and its rare, almost mystical properties were well known to them. To the Egyptians, iron from the heavens may have been seen as a gift from the gods, imbued with divine power. In fact, the word for iron in ancient Egyptian, biu, was often associated with celestial or divine forces. It is not difficult to imagine how such a rare and exotic material would be revered and incorporated into the most important of royal regalia, just as Tutankhamun's dagger was. The presence of the dagger in the tomb of the young king might suggest that it was not only a weapon, but also a powerful symbol of divine favor or protection, placed by his side for the journey into the afterlife. Yet, while the discovery of meteoritic iron in the dagger offers a tantalizing explanation, it only deepens the mystery in many ways. How did the ancient Egyptians acquire this meteorite iron? The existence of meteorites had been recorded for centuries by various ancient civilizations, but there is no evidence to suggest that the Egyptians had any specific methods for recovering them. Given the difficulty of locating and retrieving a meteorite, and the rarity of such events in the desert regions of Egypt, it seems unlikely that the meteoric iron in Tutankhamun's dagger was sourced locally. Could it have been a gift or trade item from a distant civilization, one that had access to the knowledge and resources to work with such rare material? Or could there be another, even more mysterious source, perhaps a forgotten knowledge or ancient connection that we are yet to uncover? Moreover, the craftsmanship of the dagger itself adds another layer of intrigue. The blade is not a simple piece of metal hammered into shape. It shows signs of deliberate, expert forging. The ancient Egyptians were skilled metallurgists, but the techniques required to work with meteorite iron, known to be particularly difficult to smelt and shape, would have been extraordinary for their time. How could such expertise have been developed? Were the Egyptians simply ahead of their time in terms of metallurgical technology, or could they have learned these techniques from an outside source? Some theories point to the possibility of contact with ancient civilizations outside of Egypt, such as those in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, or even more speculative suggestions of contact with an advanced, lost civilization. The potential for such interactions, though not proven, opens up fascinating possibilities. Could the knowledge of working with meteorite iron have been passed from one advanced culture to another? Or, as some fringe theories suggest, was the technology perhaps not of human origin at all? The ancient astronaut hypothesis, for instance, posits that extraterrestrial beings could have played a role in shaping the early technologies and cultures of humanity. While such ideas remain highly controversial and speculative, they highlight the mysteries surrounding objects like Tutankhamun's dagger, objects that defy easy explanation. One thing is certain: Tutankhamun's iron dagger is not just a weapon, but a puzzle that continues to challenge our understanding of the ancient world. How could a boy king, ruling in the 14th century BCE, possess such an extraordinary object? And what does the presence of a meteorite-derived blade in his tomb tell us about the nature of ancient Egyptian technology, trade, or even their connection to the cosmos? As we reflect on the dagger's significance, it's important to remember that its story is far from complete. The discovery of meteoritic iron within the blade has brought new attention to the question of ancient knowledge and innovation, but it has also opened up more questions than answers. Whether the dagger was a gift from the heavens, an extraordinary feat of ancient craftsmanship, or a symbol of divine favor, it remains a powerful enigma, a testament to the mysteries of Egypt that still lie buried beneath the sands, waiting for the right discovery to bring them into the light. In the end, the true story of the Iron Dagger may never be fully known, but the questions it raises about human ingenuity, the boundaries of ancient technology, and the possible connections between ancient cultures are bound to keep us searching for answers. The mystery is far from over. As we continue our exploration of Egypt's most enduring and enigmatic monuments, we turn our attention to a pyramid that often slips under the radar of popular attention, but holds within it an extraordinary set of mysteries. Situated at the site of Saqqara, a vast necropolis that was once the burial ground for Egypt's elite, the Pyramid of Neferirkare, a lesser-known king of Egypt's 5th dynasty, stands in quiet majesty, beckoning archaeologists and historians alike to peer deeper into its secrets. But unlike the Great Pyramids of Giza or the tomb of Tutankhamun, this pyramid has long been a source of intrigue, not for its sheer scale or grandeur, but for the unusual and unexplained features that lie within and around it. At first glance, Neferirkare's pyramid appears to be a relatively modest monument compared to the iconic structures we often associate with ancient Egypt. Originally designed as a stepped pyramid, the structure stands at around 52 meters high, a far cry from the colossal scale of the pyramids built for pharaohs like Khufu and Khafra. However, despite its smaller size, Neferirkare's pyramid is no less captivating. The pyramid, though partially ruined, reveals clues that speak of ambition, mystery, and a story that remains untold. The pyramid's most striking feature, however, lies not in its outward appearance, but in what lies beneath its surface. For centuries, Egyptologists have struggled to explain the full extent of its internal chambers, which have not been fully explored or understood. Most remarkably, there is little evidence of a burial chamber in the usual locations inside the pyramid. Instead, there are corridors and passageways that suggest the presence of something more, something hidden, waiting to be uncovered. And while the tomb of Neferirkare has never been definitively located, there is speculation that it may lie buried deep within the pyramid's uncharted depths, if it has not already been lost to time. The mystery begins with the discovery of the pyramid's unusual design. It is not only the lack of a clear burial chamber that has baffled researchers, but also the unorthodox layout of the pyramid itself. Unlike other 5th dynasty pyramids, which followed relatively standardized architectural principles, Neferirkare's pyramid deviates from the norm. The inner chambers and corridors appear to have been built with a level of complexity that suggests a degree of advanced knowledge or intent, yet no full explanation has been offered as to why the structure diverged from the established norms. Some scholars propose that Neferirkare's pyramid was part of a grander, more ambitious plan, a design that ultimately failed or was abandoned before completion. The complexity of the pyramid's internal structure, which includes multiple layers and several dead ends, suggests that it was intended to serve not just as a royal tomb, but as a symbolic gateway to the afterlife. Was this a monument to a king whose power was intended to transcend earthly boundaries, creating a metaphysical passage to the divine? Or was the pyramid's unusual construction simply the result of an unfinished project, one that was altered or disrupted before it could be fully realized? While this line of thought offers some insight, it does little to answer the most compelling question surrounding the pyramid. What happened to the tomb of Neferirkare? In an era when monumental tombs were essential to ensuring a safe passage into the afterlife, the absence of a definitive burial place in Neferirkare's pyramid stands out. There is a distinct lack of inscriptions or markings that would usually identify the king's final resting place, and no sarcophagus has been discovered within the structure itself. This has led many to speculate that the tomb may have been raided, either by tomb robbers or by rival factions, long before modern archaeologists had the chance to explore it. But could it be that the tomb remains hidden, yet to be found? Some researchers have hypothesized that the burial chamber might still be hidden deep within the pyramid, concealed behind a series of intentionally designed false walls, or buried beneath the shifting sands of time. The idea that there could be a second, secret tomb buried beneath Neferirkare's pyramid has captivated the imaginations of Egyptologists for years, with some pointing to the pyramid's complex internal structure as evidence that the burial chamber was never meant to be found by anyone but the king himself. The possibility of a hidden tomb beneath the pyramid brings us to the larger question of Neferirkare's legacy. Known as the King of the Sun, Neferirkare was a pharaoh of the 5th dynasty who ruled during a time when Egypt's royal family was deeply intertwined with the solar cult of Ra. His reign was relatively short, but marked by efforts to establish a more permanent and enduring legacy. The design of his pyramid, with its intricacies and perhaps hidden chambers, could be an attempt to assert his divine connection to the sun god and create a burial site that transcended mere earthly expectations. But what if Neferirkare's tomb was never intended to be easily found? Could his burial have been part of a secret, ritualistic tradition designed to protect his soul and royal power from outside forces? Ancient Egypt's royal tombs were not just places of rest. They were carefully constructed environments that reflected the king's divine nature and provided for the continuation of his reign in the afterlife. Perhaps the tomb of Neferirkare was designed to remain concealed from the common eyes, a tomb that would guard its secrets and protect its king from those who might wish to desecrate it. If Neferirkare's tomb is indeed hidden beneath the pyramid, the implications are vast. Could the king's burial contain treasures that have never been seen by modern eyes? Or could it hold something far more mysterious, something that could shift our understanding of Egypt's dynastic history? There are also those who suggest that the very purpose of the pyramid was not just to house a king's final resting place, but to protect something more powerful, a secret knowledge or an ancient artifact that has remained lost to time. As we consider the fate of Neferirkare's pyramid, we are left with many questions that may never be answered. What was the true purpose of the pyramid's unusual design? Why has no clear tomb ever been found inside it? And could there still be a treasure hidden beneath the sands, waiting to reveal its secrets? The mystery of Neferirkare's pyramid is far from solved. The sands of time continue to shift, concealing truths that have eluded us for millennia. Perhaps, like so many other ancient enigmas, the full story will only emerge when we least expect it. Until then, the pyramid remains an enduring riddle, a testament to the incredible complexity of ancient Egypt's architecture, its rulers, and the profound mysteries they left behind. The search continues, and we are left to wonder what lies beneath, waiting to be uncovered. As we continue our journey through the vast and enigmatic world of ancient Egypt, we come upon a site that, in its silent, imposing presence, demands our attention. The location is Serabit el-Khadim, nestled high in the mountains of the Sinai Peninsula, a place historically known for its turquoise mines, but also for its extraordinary and mysterious finds. Among these finds, one structure in particular stands out: a colossal sarcophagus, seemingly abandoned in the middle of an arid, remote plateau. This giant stone coffin, left untouched for millennia, has intrigued archaeologists, historians, and explorers alike. But what makes this sarcophagus so enigmatic? Who was intended to rest here, and why was it left unclaimed? The sarcophagus at Serabit el-Khadim is not just any tomb. Its sheer scale is breathtaking. The block of sandstone, so massive that it seems almost out of place in this barren landscape, measures over 2 meters in length, and its form, though weathered, still carries a sense of solemn grandeur. As you stand before it, the first question that arises is, why was it constructed here? There are no records of the tomb belonging to any known pharaoh or dignitary, and while its construction suggests it was meant for someone of significant status, the identity of the person, or even whether it was ever actually used for burial, remains unknown. Some scholars believe the sarcophagus was meant for one of the ancient Egyptian miners or workers who once labored in this harsh environment. Serabit el-Khadim was, after all, a hub for turquoise mining, a prized material used in jewelry and ceremonial objects by the Egyptians. The workers, often coming from various regions of Egypt, would have spent their lives toiling in these remote mountains. It is possible that the sarcophagus was intended to house the remains of an important worker, someone whose role had become significant enough to merit such a grand burial. However, as with many aspects of ancient Egypt, there are more questions than answers. Why would the Egyptians, masters of burial rites and monumental construction, leave behind such an unfinished and isolated tomb? The very size of the sarcophagus, its location far from any known royal tombs or burial grounds, raises more speculation than it settles. Its isolation speaks volumes. Was it a tomb meant for a singular, extraordinary individual, or was it a placeholder, a tomb constructed in anticipation of a person whose remains never arrived? There is a theory that the sarcophagus was built not for a man, but for a deity. Ancient Egyptian religion was deeply entwined with their concepts of the afterlife, and deities were often depicted as both protectors and guides for the dead. Could the sarcophagus have been intended as a vessel for some divine being, perhaps to offer protection to the miners, or to honor a god of the underworld or of death? The thought that this sarcophagus could have served as a symbolic offering rather than a functional burial chamber opens up new possibilities. Yet there are other theories, more fringe perhaps, but no less compelling. Some believe that the sarcophagus was never meant to hold the body of any human at all. Instead, it could have served a ritualistic or ceremonial purpose, intended to represent a journey to the afterlife for a specific group of individuals or an entire community. Could it be, as some have speculated, a symbolic marker of a portal between the mortal world and the divine? If we take this idea further, it's possible that the enormous size of the sarcophagus wasn't to accommodate the remains of a single individual, but rather the collective essence of a group of people, a community, or even a dynasty. As we consider these ideas, we begin to see a deeper pattern of mystery surrounding Serabit el-Khadim. The site, once a flourishing mining center, now lies desolate, its secrets scattered throughout the desert. The sarcophagus is but one of many unanswered questions in this forgotten corner of the ancient world. There are inscriptions here, carved into the walls of the surrounding temples, that offer tantalizing clues. Some feature the names of pharaohs, others depict scenes of divine worship. Yet they too remain incomplete, fragmentary, like pieces of a puzzle with no clear solution. What is clear, however, is that this was no ordinary mining site. It had ties to royal figures, to the gods, and possibly even to forces beyond the human realm. In examining these possibilities, we must also consider the broader context of the time period. The 12th dynasty, which was closely connected with the turquoise mines of the Sinai Peninsula, had a unique relationship with death and the afterlife. During this era, the concept of death was not just a physical end, but a transition into a divine state, where rulers and significant figures sought to maintain their power and influence even after death. Was the sarcophagus at Serabit el-Khadim part of this larger, more complex ritual? Was it a statement of power, a means of controlling not just the living, but the very forces of death itself. And yet, despite the many theories, we find ourselves facing the undeniable fact that no definitive answers have emerged. Excavations at Serabit el-Khadim have yielded artifacts, pottery, and inscriptions, rich evidence of the site's importance. But the sarcophagus itself, still sitting silently on the mountain, remains a mystery. It is as though the very stone of the tomb refuses to speak, guarding its secret closely. Could it be that the answer lies not in what we have found, but in what we have yet to uncover? How much of the site's original purpose has been lost to time, hidden beneath layers of history and desert sands? The mystery of the giant sarcophagus at Serabit el-Khadim is far from solved. While some may argue that it was simply an unfinished burial site, others see it as a puzzle waiting to be unlocked. And perhaps, in the grand tapestry of Egypt's ancient civilization, it is this very ambiguity that continues to draw us in. Because, as with all unsolved mysteries, the allure of the unknown lies in the unanswered questions, the ones that refuse to be closed and which invite us to look deeper. What truths, buried beneath centuries of shifting sands, might still lie waiting to be revealed? As we continue our exploration of Egypt's unsolved mysteries, we find ourselves at the crossroads of myth and history, where the enigmatic figure of Akhenaten stands, casting long shadows over the sands of time. Known for his radical shift in religious and cultural practices, Akhenaten was one of the most controversial and perplexing pharaohs to ever rule Egypt. Yet, despite the centuries of study and debate, his true legacy remains obscured, veiled in a haze of unanswered questions. Akhenaten's reign, some 3,300 years ago, marks a dramatic departure from the ancient traditions of Egypt. He is perhaps best known for abandoning Egypt's centuries-old polytheistic beliefs and, in their place, establishing the worship of Aten, the sun disk. In doing so, he effectively erased centuries of religious doctrine and broke with the gods of Egypt. His decision to elevate Aten above all other deities was an act so audacious that it can still leave modern historians and scholars wondering, who was Akhenaten really? The first sighting of Akhenaten's unique vision can be found in the city of Akhenaten, which he built as a new capital on the banks of the Nile. Today, this site, modern-day Amarna, lies in ruins, its crumbled structures bearing silent witness to his ambitious attempts to redefine the very nature of kingship. The city itself was a monumental undertaking created from the ground up, and it reflects Akhenaten's break from tradition in every stone. There are no grand temples dedicated to Egypt's ancient gods here. Instead, the city's center is devoted to the worship of Aten, whose rays are depicted as reaching down to touch the king and queen, with hands offering Ankh symbols of life. Even the very iconography of Akhenaten was strikingly different from his predecessors. His depictions were often marked by elongated features and soft, feminine attributes, a stark contrast to the typical idealized forms of Egyptian royalty. But what drives historians to question Akhenaten's identity is not just his religious reforms or his unusual artistic representations. It is the sudden and radical nature of his changes that continues to perplex us. Was he truly a pharaoh, a ruler in the traditional sense? Or did he see himself as something more, something divine? Was Akhenaten, in his eyes, not merely a king, but a god on earth? The question of whether Akhenaten viewed himself as a god is further complicated by his relationship with Aten. To be sure, he presented Aten as the one true god, the creator of all things, whose light and power extended beyond the heavens. However, unlike other Egyptian rulers who portrayed themselves as gods through their divine lineage, Akhenaten seems to have taken the role of Aten's intermediary on earth. Some scholars suggest that, in his vision, Akhenaten was not simply a mortal king, but rather the direct embodiment of Aten. In this sense, He could have seen himself as both a divine ruler and a physical manifestation of the god, a blurring of the lines between godhood and kingship unlike any seen in Egypt before or after. This hypothesis is supported by the fact that Akhenaten's depictions in art and sculpture often show him with exaggerated physical traits, elongated limbs, a curiously round face, and an almost androgynous appearance. Some have posited that these representations might reflect the idea of his divine essence, symbolizing not just his kingship, but a sacred, otherworldly being who was closer to the divine than any ruler before him. In his vision, he would have been more than a mere mortal. He would have been an extension of the god Aten itself, unifying both the celestial and earthly realms. But was Akhenaten truly attempting to elevate himself to the status of a god? Or was this merely an effort to impose his will on the traditional religious structure? Could he have been, in his own mind, trying to correct what he saw as a misinterpretation of divine will, a necessary step toward bringing Egypt back into harmony with its true spiritual purpose? Adding complexity to the puzzle is the mystery of Akhenaten's legacy after his death. Upon his death, the city of Akhenaten was abandoned, and his successors, most notably his son Tutankhamun, reversed many of his reforms. Tutankhamun, who ascended the throne at a young age, reinstated the worship of the traditional gods, effectively erasing Akhenaten's radical religious experiment. The very fact that his successors attempted to completely erase his name from history is telling. Was this a political move to dismantle the cult of Aten and restore the old order? Or was it a rejection of Akhenaten's godlike pretensions? Moreover, the subsequent rulers who took power after Akhenaten, including Ai and Horemheb, seemingly made concerted efforts to obliterate any record of Akhenaten's reign. His monuments were defaced, his name stricken from official records, and Akhenaten's once grand city of Akhenaten was left to decay. The fact that he is known to history today largely through the rediscovery of Amarna and his tomb, which was only fully unearthed in the 19th century, suggests that his reign was intentionally buried in both memory and monument. Yet, it is impossible to completely erase a figure as complex as Akhenaten. His reign, his ideas, and his legacy continue to evoke fascination and intrigue. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Akhenaten lies not in his actions alone, but in the strange silence that followed his reign. Did the Egyptian people truly reject him? Or was there something more to his godlike self-conception that could not be fully understood in his time? Did Akhenaten, in his attempts to merge divinity with kingship, ultimately succeed in transcending the limits of human understanding? The artifacts that survive from his time, such as the famous bust of Nefertiti, his queen, and the delicate limestone carvings from Akhenaten, suggest a ruler deeply entrenched in his own vision. Whether he was a visionary king or a man deluded by divine ambition remains an open question. What is clear is that Akhenaten, in his quest to redefine the very nature of power, left an indelible mark on history. But was his quest an earnest pursuit of divinity, or an overreach that even his successors could not tolerate? Perhaps the greatest unanswered question surrounding Akhenaten is whether his radical vision of divinity was truly his own, or whether it was the product of deeper, older beliefs, ideas that could have been shaped by influences outside the borders of Egypt, even from beyond the known world. Could Akhenaten's reforms have been part of a larger ancient mystery, a search for deeper truths hidden in the ancient Egyptian spiritual tradition? In the shadow of the ruins of Amarna, we are left to wonder, was Akhenaten a god, a pharaoh, or something else entirely, a figure whose true nature may never be fully understood, lost in the shifting sands of time? The mystery of Akhenaten continues to defy simple answers, and as with all great historical enigmas, we are left with more questions than resolutions. As we shift our gaze from the stars and the possibility of interdimensional gateways, we now turn to one of Egypt's most iconic and enduring mysteries, an enigma carved from the very bedrock of the Giza Plateau. The Great Sphinx of Giza, with its lion's body and human head, stands as a silent sentinel over the ancient landscape, its gaze fixed toward the horizon. For thousands of years, it has captivated historians, archaeologists, and explorers who have all sought to unlock the secrets hidden in its weathered stone. But while the Sphinx is undeniably one of the most recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt, it has also become a subject of heated debate. Who built it? When was it built? And perhaps most intriguing of all, how did it come to bear the marks of erosion that suggest an age far older than the conventional timeline of Egyptian history? The water erosion debate, which has simmered for decades, challenges the very foundation of our understanding of this ancient monument, and it beckons us to reconsider the origins of the Sphinx itself. The conventional narrative tells us that the Sphinx was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, around 2500 BCE, as part of the larger complex that includes the Great Pyramid of Giza. For centuries, this interpretation has been accepted, grounded in the belief that the Sphinx was constructed as a symbol of royal power, perhaps to represent Khafra himself. But this widely accepted view has been increasingly called into question, particularly in light of the erosion patterns observed on the Sphinx's body and surrounding enclosure. In the early 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch introduced a theory that has since sparked widespread debate. Schoch, after closely examining the erosion patterns on the Sphinx, suggested that the monument showed signs of water damage, erosion that would be consistent with exposure to significant rainfall over a long period. According to Schoch, the type of erosion seen on the Sphinx is not consistent with the hot, dry climate of modern-day Egypt, but rather points to a much earlier period in the region's history when the climate was far wetter. The evidence, Schoch argued, suggests that the Sphinx may have been constructed thousands of years earlier than previously thought, perhaps as far back as 10,000 BCE, when the climate of the Sahara was significantly wetter and more hospitable. If Schoch's theory is correct, it would push the creation of the Sphinx, and by extension the rise of Egyptian civilization, far beyond the limits of recorded history. But could this be possible? Could the Sphinx really be much older than traditionally believed? And if so, what does that mean for our understanding of the ancient world? The debate over the Sphinx's age is not a matter of pure speculation. It is grounded in physical evidence. Schoch's analysis of the erosion marks on the Sphinx and its surrounding walls shows distinct water weathering that cannot easily be explained by the arid conditions of the Giza Plateau. The limestone of the Sphinx itself, particularly on the lower portion of the statue, exhibits a type of weathering that is typically associated with prolonged rainfall, not the wind erosion that is usually found in desert climates. This raises an intriguing possibility. What if the Sphinx predates the dynastic period of ancient Egypt? What if it was built by a much older civilization, one that flourished in a distant era when the climate was radically different? But not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Many mainstream Egyptologists and archaeologists maintain that the Sphinx was built in the 4th dynasty under the reign of Khafra as part of the Grand Royal Burial Complex. They argue that the erosion patterns, while unusual, can be explained by a combination of wind erosion and the natural effects of time on the exposed stone. The idea of a more ancient civilization, they argue, is speculative at best and unsupported by the archaeological record. Some critics of the water erosion theory have pointed out that, while the Sphinx does show signs of wear, the erosion could also be attributed to other factors, such as the occasional flash floods that occur in the region or the effects of salt crystallization from the moisture in the air. These explanations, though plausible, have not fully satisfied those who believe that the true origins of the Sphinx lie beyond the conventional timeline. This brings us to another layer of the mystery. If the Sphinx were indeed built by a civilization far older than ancient Egypt, Who were they? What kind of society could have constructed such a monumental statue? And what knowledge did they possess? Were they connected to the ancient Egyptians? Or was there an earlier forgotten culture whose influence still echoes in the monuments of Giza? Some have suggested that the builders of the Sphinx could have been a lost civilization, one that predates the Egyptians by thousands of years, perhaps even stretching back to a time when the Sahara was a lush and fertile landscape. There are hints of such a civilization in the ancient myths and texts of Egypt, which speak of gods and kings from distant pasts, and of lost lands that existed before the rise of the Pharaohs. Could the Sphinx be a remnant of this forgotten era, a testament to a people whose achievements were lost to time? This theory is supported by the idea that the Sphinx may have originally represented not Khafra, but a much older figure, perhaps even a god or a king from a forgotten age. The lion's body of the Sphinx has led some to speculate that it may have once been associated with the constellation Leo, a symbol of strength and power, and perhaps linked to an even older tradition of celestial worship. There is also the intriguing question of the Sphinx's alignment. The statue is positioned so that it faces the rising sun during the spring equinox, a feature that suggests a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and a deliberate attempt to align the monument with the celestial cycles. Was this alignment part of a larger system of knowledge, one that could have been passed down from an earlier civilization? Or was it part of a larger, more advanced spiritual system that the ancient Egyptians inherited and later adapted to their own purposes? As we consider these possibilities, we are left with more questions than answers. The evidence of water erosion on the Sphinx is compelling, but it does not provide a definitive timeline or explain the full context of its construction. The theories about the Sphinx's age and origins remain speculative, and the true nature of this colossal monument may never be fully understood. The Sphinx stands, as it always has, watching over the sands of time. Its weathered face bears the marks of centuries, perhaps even millennia, of exposure to the elements, yet it remains a mystery, its secrets buried beneath layers of stone and dust. Could the Sphinx be a remnant of an ancient civilization that existed long before the Pharaohs? Or is it simply a monument to the ingenuity of the ancient Egyptians, a creation built within the timeline of Egypt's dynastic history? As we stand before the Great Sphinx, gazing into its timeless eyes, we are reminded that the more we learn, the more we realize how little we truly know. The mystery of the Sphinx, like so many other unsolved questions from ancient Egypt, continues to beckon us toward new possibilities. And as long as the Sphinx endures, so too will the search for answers that may one day, perhaps, change everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. As we move from the monumental enigmas of Egypt's ancient structures, we now turn our attention to a more subtle, yet equally captivating mystery: the Shendyt, the ancient Egyptian garment that cloaked the bodies of royalty and nobility alike. At first glance, these garments may seem like simple pieces of cloth, practical, even ceremonial in their function. However, the story of the Shendyt is far more intricate than mere clothing. It is a thread that weaves together history, culture, and symbolism in ways that are only beginning to be understood. The Shendyt was the traditional loincloth worn by Egyptian men, particularly the elite, from the Old Kingdom through the New Kingdom, and even into the later periods. It was a garment of status and significance, a symbol of the wearer's position within the social hierarchy. The design of the Shendyt itself was simple: a cloth, often linen, wrapped around the waist and secured with a belt, the excess fabric draped in front. However, its simplicity belies its deeper role in the ancient Egyptian worldview, for the garment held symbolic power that we have only begun to unravel. One of the most striking features of the Shendyt is its use in funerary contexts. We often see it depicted in tombs, on statues, and in various representations of the deceased, including those of pharaohs and high-ranking officials. This raises an immediate question. Why was this particular garment chosen to accompany the dead into the afterlife? What did the Shendyt symbolize beyond its practical purpose as everyday attire? The answer, it seems, lies not just in its material form, but in the coded meanings it may have carried with it. In ancient Egypt, clothing was far more than a protective covering. It was a visual language, a medium through which social, political, and religious messages were conveyed. For example, the color of the garment, the way it was draped, and the way it interacted with other elements of the individual's appearance were all carefully considered. In the case of the Shendyt, its design and placement appear to have been deeply tied to the concept of rebirth and transformation. The cloth, wrapping around the wearer's body, may have symbolized a return to the womb, a passage through which the soul was reborn in the afterlife. But the mystery deepens when we consider the Shendyt's use in the context of royal iconography. The pharaohs, as intermediaries between the gods and humanity, were often shown wearing a variation of this garment. In the famous statue of Pharaoh Khafra, for instance, the king is depicted wearing a beautifully carved version of the Shendyt, the folds of the garment lending an air of divine authority to his posture. In these depictions, the garment is not merely functional. It is symbolic of the king's divine status, his ability to stand between the world of the living and the world of the gods. This duality of the Shendyt, both as a functional piece of clothing and a deeply symbolic object, raises a curious possibility. Could there be a hidden code embedded within the way the Shendyt was worn, or the way it was represented in art and sculpture? Could the folds, the knots, and the draping of the cloth serve as a kind of visual language, one that only those deeply initiated into the mysteries of Egyptian culture could understand? Some scholars have suggested that the Shendyt's design may have had a deeper, ritualistic meaning. The way the cloth wrapped around the body could have symbolized the wrapping of a mummy, the transition from life to death, and the journey of the soul through the afterlife. This theory suggests that the Shendyt was not just a garment worn in life, but a visual manifestation of the process of mummification itself, its very folds representing the movement of the soul from the physical world to the divine realm. Could there be an ancient code embedded in the way the Shendyt was fashioned or worn that reveals deeper esoteric knowledge about the Egyptian concept of the soul's journey? Other scholars have proposed a more speculative theory, one that pushes the boundaries of conventional understanding. Some believe that the Shendyt, in its intricate design and specific placement, may have served as a ritualistic key, a key that unlocked hidden powers or wisdom. The belief here is that the clothing of the ancient Egyptians was imbued with certain energies, much like the sacred objects in their temples. These energies, according to this theory, may have been activated through specific rituals, and perhaps the Shendyt itself was part of this sacred process. Was the Shendyt merely a garment, or did it hold secrets about the nature of life, death, and the afterlife that the ancient Egyptians guarded closely? To explore this idea further, one must consider the materials used in the construction of the Shendyt. Linen, the most common fabric for Egyptian clothing, was considered a pure and sacred material associated with the gods. Linen's purity was thought to mirror the state of the soul in its journey toward divinity. Could the fabric itself, woven with the same care as the tombs and temples of Egypt, have played a role in channeling spiritual forces? Was it a tool, not just for practical use, but for spiritual transformation? Some fringe theories suggest that the Shendyt was woven using special techniques that carried symbolic meaning, encoded patterns, or even magical formulas. Could these codes have been hidden in the very fabric of the garment, visible only to those who knew how to interpret them? There is also the question of how the Shendyt related to other forms of Egyptian ritual. Was it part of a larger system of sacred clothing, each piece worn for a specific purpose during the elaborate rites of passage that defined the Egyptian spiritual journey. If the Shendyt was indeed part of this system, what other garments might have been part of the same symbolic code? The use of clothing in ancient Egypt, after all, extended far beyond the Shendyt. The elaborate robes of the priests, the intricate headdresses, and the specific garments worn by the pharaohs all seem to suggest a deep connection between clothing and spiritual power. Interestingly, the Shendyt's mysterious code is not confined to tombs or royal iconography. There are numerous depictions in which individuals wear the garment, often standing in a pose of reverence or prayer, suggesting that the act of wearing the Shendyt was itself an important ritual. Could the way the Shendyt was worn, perhaps the number of folds, the way it was tied, or the specific fabric chosen, have signified something about the wearer's spiritual state or purpose in life? The question remains: was the Shendyt simply a functional piece of clothing, or was it something far more profound, a garment laden with meaning, a coded symbol that unlocked ancient spiritual knowledge? The more we learn about the Shendyt, the more we realize how much we still do not understand. The mystery of the Shendyt invites us to look deeper, to explore the hidden meanings behind the symbols, and to question what secrets may lie beneath the fabric of Egypt's ancient garments. As with so many aspects of ancient Egypt, the answers are elusive, woven into the very fabric of history, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look beyond the surface. As we step further into the realm of Egypt's sacred and enigmatic past, we turn our focus to a figure that was at the very heart of the ancient Egyptian understanding of life, death, and the afterlife, a figure whose mysterious presence looms large in the temples and tombs of Egypt: Anubis, the god of mummification and the protector of the dead. Today, Anubis is widely known for his jackal-headed form, standing watch over the deceased as they journey into the afterlife. But what we often overlook are the sacred rituals associated with him, rituals that were once so sacred and so hidden that they have all but vanished from our historical records. Anubis, in ancient Egyptian belief, was far more than a deity. He was the very guardian of the soul's journey through the Duat, the underworld, and the one who ensured that the deceased were properly prepared for their eternal existence. He was present at the moment of death, overseeing the embalming process, and was also the god who would weigh the heart of the deceased against the feather of Maat, determining their fate in the afterlife. Yet, beyond this well-known role, there remains an aura of secrecy and uncertainty surrounding the rituals dedicated to Anubis. What ceremonies were once performed in his honor? And why is so much of this knowledge hidden or lost to time? At the heart of this mystery is the ancient Egyptian practice of mummification, which was an elaborate and sacred process, one that held deep spiritual significance. It is said that Anubis himself was the first to discover the art of embalming, teaching humans how to preserve the bodies of the dead in order to safeguard the soul's journey to the afterlife. The rituals associated with Anubis were not only about preserving the body, they were about preparing the soul for a journey through realms that could only be reached by those who had been properly initiated into the mysteries of death and rebirth. Yet, while we have a solid understanding of mummification itself, of the chemicals used, the procedures followed, and the materials involved, what we don't know is the full extent of the rituals that were practiced in Anubis's name. These ceremonies were private, sacred affairs, carried out within the inner sanctums of temples and tombs. Most of the details of these rites remain locked away in the shadows of Egypt's ancient past, waiting to be uncovered. What is particularly intriguing is that many of these rituals are believed to have been performed not only for the pharaohs, but for high-ranking individuals who sought to ensure their own protection in the afterlife. The priests of Anubis, highly trained in the mysteries of death and rebirth, would have been entrusted with knowledge that was too sacred for the common populace to understand. These priests were the keepers of secret rites, rites that could have involved complex prayers, chants, and incantations designed to ensure that the deceased would pass safely through the trials of the afterlife. What did these sacred ceremonies look like, and why were they so carefully hidden from the public eye? We do know that some of the most important rituals were centered around the opening of the mouth ceremony, a pivotal moment in the embalming process. This rite was meant to reanimate the deceased, allowing them to eat, drink, and speak in the afterlife. It was said that the god Anubis himself would play a key role in this ceremony, guiding the soul as it transitioned from the physical world into the spiritual realm. Yet, while we know of its significance, we can only imagine the depth of the ceremonial practices involved, much of which has been lost to history. Could there have been more hidden rites, more complex and obscure ceremonies linked to Anubis? Rituals that went beyond the preparation of the dead and into realms of powerful, transformative magic? Some fringe theories suggest that the priests of Anubis may have been involved in practices that were designed not just to protect the soul of the dead, but to tap into powers that could transcend time itself. The idea that these ancient priests were the keepers of secrets, magical rituals that could alter the very fabric of reality, lingers just beneath the surface. Was it possible that the rites dedicated to Anubis had the power to transcend the boundaries between life and death, perhaps even to open doors to other realms of existence? Beyond the ceremonial rites, another question arises. Was there a secret esoteric tradition hidden within the worship of Anubis? An understanding of the afterlife that was more profound than what was accessible to ordinary Egyptians? Some scholars have posited that the role of Anubis and his associated rituals may have been part of a broader spiritual system, one designed to impart knowledge about the mysteries of the soul and the universe. Were the priests of Anubis privy to this knowledge? And if so, what was the true nature of their teachings? One theory suggests that Anubis was linked to more than just the afterlife. His role may have extended into the very fabric of cosmic order itself. The god was often depicted as both protector and guide, a figure who bridged the mortal and divine realms. This dual role hints at a deeper, perhaps hidden understanding of the universe, a worldview in which life and death were not opposing forces but part of a continuous cycle of transformation. Could the rituals associated with Anubis, then, have been designed to teach a deeper spiritual truth, one that could awaken higher consciousness in those who were initiated into its mysteries? The secrecy surrounding the rituals of Anubis may also point to a pattern within the Egyptian priesthood, an elite group of individuals who held knowledge that was reserved for the few, passed down through generations. This knowledge, carefully protected and guarded, could have held the keys to unlocking not just the afterlife, but the very nature of existence itself. The Egyptians believed that the gods communicated their wisdom through sacred symbols, words, and rituals, and that these divine messages could be deciphered only by those with the right knowledge and spiritual training. Was it possible that the rituals of Anubis were more than simple rites of passage, and instead contained profound secrets about the nature of reality, the soul, and the universe? Another aspect of the mystery surrounding the rituals of Anubis is the question of how much of this knowledge was shared with other cultures. Egypt, with its long-standing connection to the gods, was a beacon of spiritual wisdom in the ancient world, and its influence stretched far beyond its borders. Could the hidden rites of Anubis have influenced other ancient civilizations, from Mesopotamia to Greece, all of whom had their own gods of death and rebirth? Did the worship of Anubis extend beyond the Egyptian pantheon, finding resonance in distant lands? The lost rituals of Anubis remain a tantalizing mystery, an unsolved puzzle that speaks to our fascination with death, the afterlife, and the possibilities beyond this world. The ceremonies dedicated to this ancient god were deeply sacred, shrouded in secrecy, and designed to guide souls through the most profound journey of all. What might we still uncover about these rituals in the dusty archives of ancient tombs and forgotten texts? What truths, hidden for millennia, might one day be revealed to us? The legacy of Anubis and his rituals, like so many aspects of ancient Egypt, remains just out of reach, waiting for the moment when the final pieces of the puzzle might fall into place. As we move deeper into the labyrinth of Egypt's ancient past, we encounter an eerie phenomenon that has both fascinated and terrified those who dare to enter the tombs of the pharaohs, the curse of the Egyptian tombs. These tales of death and misfortune surrounding the discovery of ancient burial sites have become a staple of popular lore, perpetuated by stories of explorers struck down by sudden illness, mysterious accidents, or unexplained deaths. But is there more to these curses than mere superstition? Why, for centuries, have tombs in Egypt been shrouded in such ominous warnings? What is it about these sacred places that seems to provoke such deadly consequences for those who disturb their rest? The origins of the so-called curse can be traced back to the early 20th century, during the excavation of the tomb of Tutankhamun by the British archaeologist Howard Carter. Upon discovering the tomb in 1922, Carter and his team uncovered a wealth of treasures untouched for over 3,000 years. Yet it wasn't the treasures that captured the world's imagination, but the ominous words that supposedly adorned the tomb's entrance. "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." The phrase, believed by some to be a curse, quickly became the focus of media attention, especially when a number of those involved in the tomb's excavation began to die under strange circumstances. Lord Carnarvon, the financial backer of Carter's expedition, was the first to succumb to a sudden illness, dying from an infected mosquito bite shortly after the tomb's opening. His death was followed by a series of other unexplained fatalities among those involved in the discovery. One by one, members of the excavation team met untimely ends, and the press was quick to connect these events to the curse of Tutankhamun. The story of the mummy's curse was born. But is it truly a curse? Or is there something more grounded at play? The mystery deepens as we examine the broader context of Egypt's ancient tombs. While the idea of a supernatural curse is compelling, scholars and researchers have suggested more practical explanations. The tombs of Egypt, especially those of royalty, were often filled with dangerous substances, poisonous gases, mold, and bacteria that could pose serious health risks to anyone who entered. Many tombs were sealed for centuries, their air stagnant and filled with potentially lethal pathogens. Some have even speculated that the notion of a curse may have originated as a means of deterring grave robbers and would-be invaders, a symbolic warning placed on the tombs to protect the sacred resting places of the dead. Indeed, the ancient Egyptians themselves believed that the tombs were sacred spaces, portals to the afterlife. The idea that disturbing these sacred spaces would anger the gods was deeply embedded in their culture. In the belief system of the time, the tombs were not merely resting places for the deceased, but the final sanctuary where the deceased would make their journey to the afterlife. The tombs, adorned with inscriptions and prayers, were thought to protect the soul from the dangers of the journey ahead. The concept of a curse could have been an expression of these beliefs, designed to guard the sanctity of the tomb and its occupant. Yet, as much as the practical explanations make sense, they fail to fully account for the eerie patterns and strange coincidences that seem to surround these tombs. Why, for example, did the curse of Tutankhamun seem to be so specifically targeted? Was it a mere coincidence that those who suffered from it were connected to the tomb's discovery, or is there something more enigmatic at play? And why, after all these years, do we continue to hear stories of misfortune and tragedy linked to the tombs, even when the physical risks have long been understood? Some have suggested that the curse might be tied to the psychological impact of the tombs themselves. After all, tombs like those of the pharaohs are much more than physical sites of burial. They are places imbued with deep spiritual significance. When explorers and archaeologists entered these tombs, they were not just disturbing the physical remains of the dead, they were intruding on spaces that, in the minds of the ancient Egyptians, were sacred and otherworldly. Could it be that the mere act of entering these tombs, of disturbing what was once considered a doorway to another realm, might have brought about unforeseen consequences? Could the curse be a product of collective belief and suggestion, amplified by the growing notoriety of the tomb's discoveries? Further compounding the mystery is the fact that the curse seems to have affected not only those directly involved with the excavation, but also those who came after. Some claim that the curse extended to generations of descendants, continuing the pattern of death and misfortune in families connected to the tombs. This notion adds another layer of intrigue to the story, prompting questions about whether these stories might be more than coincidences or psychological phenomena. There are also those who argue that the curse is a product of something far older, an ancient power tied to the spiritual significance of the tombs themselves. The Egyptians were known for their elaborate rituals and their belief in the power of the divine to influence the world of the living. Perhaps the tombs were not just physical spaces, but places that contained a sort of spiritual energy, one that could be disturbed by the presence of outsiders. Was there a hidden ritualistic aspect to these tombs that we have yet to fully understand? Could the curse have been a form of spiritual protection placed on the tombs, a sort of ancient magic designed to ensure that the sanctity of the resting place was maintained? Some researchers have even ventured into more speculative realms, suggesting that the curse might be a manifestation of a deeper, hidden knowledge, the key to unlocking a secret that the ancient Egyptians wanted to remain undisturbed. The theory goes that the curse was not simply a warning, but a mechanism designed to safeguard something of great value. Could there be an ancient truth, an undiscovered power, or a hidden treasure buried within the tombs, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? And if so, what might the Egyptians have feared in sharing this knowledge with the outside world? One thing is clear: the curse of the Egyptian tombs is far from resolved. While many of the so-called cursed tombs have been excavated without incident, the stories continue to persist, woven into the very fabric of Egyptology. There is no definitive explanation for why some explorers meet tragic ends, while others emerge unscathed. And yet, the tales endure, compelling us to look beyond the physical remains of the tombs and into the deeper, more mystical aspects of the ancient world. Could it be that the tombs still hold secrets, not just of ancient wealth and kings, but of something far more profound? What might lie beneath the surface of these sacred burial grounds? Hidden knowledge, divine power, or even a force we cannot yet comprehend? As the mystery unfolds, one question lingers. What truths about Egypt's ancient past remain locked away, waiting for the right moment to be revealed, or perhaps waiting for the right person to disturb their slumber? As we continue to unravel the complexities of ancient Egypt, we come to a truly extraordinary enigma, one that stretches far beyond the physical world into the heavens themselves. It is a symbol, etched into the stone of one of Egypt's most sacred temples, whose meaning and significance remain a subject of both fascination and mystery: the Dendera Zodiac. This intricate celestial map, found within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, depicts a vast array of stars, constellations, and deities, offering a glimpse into the ancient Egyptians' understanding of the cosmos. The Dendera Zodiac is a large relief carving that covers the ceiling of a crypt, depicting the heavens in all their complexity. Yet, despite its grandeur and the wealth of detail it provides, the true purpose and meaning of this remarkable artifact have remained elusive. Was it merely a representation of the night sky, a kind of celestial calendar used to mark time and religious events? Or does it contain deeper, more hidden truths, perhaps an encoded message about the nature of the universe itself. At first glance, the Dendera Zodiac appears to be a straightforward depiction of the stars. We see familiar constellations such as Taurus the Bull, the Lion of Leo, and the Scorpion of Scorpio, among others. The circular design places the signs of the zodiac around a central figure, representing the heavens, with the gods and goddesses of Egyptian mythology surrounding it. But as scholars and researchers have examined the zodiac more closely, they've realized that there are numerous aspects of the relief that do not fit neatly into our conventional understanding of the sky. For one, the date of the Dendera Zodiac's creation is still a point of contention. The temple in which it resides was built during the Ptolemaic period, around 50 BCE, yet the imagery it portrays seems to reflect a much earlier, even more ancient cosmology. Some have argued that the zodiac's symbols and their arrangement suggest a far more sophisticated understanding of the heavens than what was believed to have been possible at the time. Could the Egyptians have had access to astronomical knowledge that predates recorded history, perhaps through some lost tradition, or even through contact with other ancient civilizations? One of the most compelling and mysterious features of the Dendera Zodiac is the presence of an unusual alignment between the constellations and the stars they represent. Unlike the modern zodiac, which is based on the position of the sun in relation to the constellations, the Dendera Zodiac seems to depict a different system of star alignment. Some researchers have suggested that the ancient Egyptians may have been aware of a precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon in which the Earth's axis slowly shifts, causing the position of the stars to change over millennia. This idea has led to speculation that the Dendera Zodiac could be a map of the heavens as they appeared thousands of years earlier, perhaps offering a glimpse into the sky as it looked during the time of the pyramids. But how could the Egyptians, so long ago, have possessed such an advanced understanding of astronomy? Ancient Egyptian texts, such as the pyramid texts and coffin texts, hint at a cosmology that included not only the stars, but also the planets and even the movement of the sun through the various realms of the afterlife. These texts suggest a profound knowledge of the heavens, but no definitive records exist that explain how the Egyptians came to possess such intricate astronomical knowledge. Some fringe theories take this speculation even further. Could the Dendera Zodiac, with its detailed representations of the stars and planets, be evidence of an advanced extraterrestrial influence? It is a theory that has been suggested in various books and documentaries, with proponents arguing that the precision and complexity of the zodiac could not have been achieved by the Egyptians alone. While these theories remain highly speculative and unsupported by mainstream archaeology, they continue to capture the imagination of many who seek to explain the incredible achievements of ancient civilizations through the lens of otherworldly intervention. Perhaps the most intriguing question surrounding the Dendera Zodiac is its true purpose. What was its function within the context of the Temple of Hathor? Hathor, the goddess of love, joy, and motherhood, was associated with music, dance, and fertility, but she also played a crucial role in the afterlife, guiding the souls of the deceased to their final resting places. The temple at Dendera was dedicated to her, and the zodiac may have had a ceremonial function linked to the rites performed in honor of Hathor. Some researchers suggest that the Dendera Zodiac may have been used as a cosmic map for the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife, reflecting the Egyptian belief in the soul's passage through the heavens. In this interpretation, the stars and constellations depicted in the zodiac could symbolize various stages of the deceased's journey, perhaps representing different trials or realms that the soul would encounter in the afterlife. The zodiac, then, might not simply be an astronomical chart, but a sacred guide, a map to spiritual ascension. Another possibility is that the Dendera Zodiac served as a tool for timing important religious events, such as the annual flooding of the Nile, which the Egyptians believed was the tears of the goddess Hathor. The celestial imagery might have been used to predict or mark these crucial events, creating a link between the heavens and the terrestrial world. This would suggest that the Zodiac played a key role in the religious and agricultural calendar, connecting the cycles of the sky to the cycles of life on Earth. The possibility that the Dendera Zodiac contains hidden symbolism or teachings only understood by the priests of Hathor adds another layer of mystery. Egypt's priesthood was known for its complex rituals and secret knowledge, much of which has been lost to time. Could there be a hidden code or message within the Zodiac, one that might shed light on the mysteries of the universe, or perhaps provide insight into the secret teachings of the Egyptian religion? Some have proposed that the celestial map could be a form of ancient esoteric wisdom, an encoded guide to understanding the nature of life, death, and the cosmos. Could the Dendera Zodiac be a form of sacred geometry, a visual language designed to communicate divine truths in a form accessible only to those who could decipher its symbolism? It is this combination of celestial wonder, religious significance, and esoteric mystery that has made the Dendera Zodiac such a captivating puzzle for modern scholars and armchair theorists alike. While we have made strides in understanding its basic structure and the constellations it represents, much about the Zodiac remains unclear. What secrets does it hold, hidden in plain sight within the temple at Dendera? Is it simply a relic of an ancient civilization's astronomical knowledge? Or does it point to a deeper, more profound understanding of the universe, one that remains beyond our grasp? As we gaze upon the Dendera Zodiac, it's impossible not to wonder about the mysteries that lie beyond the stars themselves. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians were aware of cosmic truths that we have only begun to uncover? Or is the true significance of the Dendera Zodiac still waiting to be revealed, hidden in the shadows of history, waiting for the right moment to come to light? The celestial map remains, as it always has, an open-ended riddle. And perhaps, in the end, the greatest mystery of all is the one that still lies ahead, the secrets of the cosmos that have yet to be uncovered. As we shift our focus to one of the most perplexing and unfinished marvels of Egypt's pyramid-building era, we encounter a structure that, for all its majesty, has never quite reached its full potential. The bent pyramid, standing at the edge of the desert near the town of Dashur, is an anomaly within the ancient Egyptian architectural landscape. Unlike the perfectly smooth-sided pyramids of Giza or the towering straight lines of later structures, the bent pyramid presents us with something that feels unfinished. Its lower half rising at a steep angle, only to suddenly change direction and flatten out at the top, creating a curious, bent appearance. At first glance, the bent pyramid seems like an attempt at perfection gone awry, as if the architects were striving for a design that was ultimately abandoned. It is an impressive structure, but the question remains: why was it never completed as originally intended? The pyramid's peculiar shape has long intrigued historians, archaeologists, and even engineers. Standing at 101 meters tall, it was originally meant to rise higher, and its distinctive change in angle midway through construction suggests a sudden shift in design. Historians have debated the reason for this alteration, with some pointing to the challenges of engineering that arose during its construction. As the story goes, the builders may have realized that the steep angle of the pyramid's initial design, believed to be around 54 degrees, was unstable and risky, so they changed course to a gentler angle of about 43 degrees to avoid collapse. The sudden shift in the slope, however, left the structure with an unmistakable bend, making it a unique and puzzling artifact in Egypt's architectural history. Yet, despite these explanations, many unanswered questions linger. Why did the architects proceed with such an unconventional design in the first place, knowing the risks of the steep slope? And why, after the decision to alter the design, was the pyramid never completed to its full height? Could there be something more to this structure, a deeper mystery that we have yet to uncover? The story of the bent pyramid's unfinished nature is often tied to the reign of Pharaoh Sneferu, the founder of Egypt's 4th dynasty. He is credited with the innovation of the bent pyramid, a bold leap forward in pyramid design after the relatively crude attempts at earlier structures. The bent pyramid was part of a series of ambitious projects initiated by Sneferu, who is also responsible for the creation of the Red Pyramid nearby, which was eventually completed and stands as one of Egypt's first true smooth-sided pyramids. Given that Sneferu was a ruler known for his extensive building projects, it seems unlikely that the bent pyramid's partial construction was the result of a lack of resources or manpower. So, if not those practical concerns, what other factors might have played a role in its abandonment? Some theories suggest that there may have been a catastrophic event that halted the construction. In ancient Egypt, the completion of a pyramid was not just a matter of engineering. It was an essential part of the pharaoh's religious and political legacy. The pyramid was a symbol of the king's divine power, and its construction had profound spiritual significance. If the project was abandoned mid-construction, was it possible that something happened during Sneferu's reign? Perhaps an illness, a rebellion, or even political upheaval that led to the decision to stop work on the pyramid? Could there have been a deeper, more personal reason for the cessation of the project? Did Sneferu lose faith in the pyramid's symbolism or its connection to his royal divinity? Another intriguing possibility involves the role of the pyramid itself. Ancient Egyptian pyramids were not just tombs. They were powerful symbols tied to the gods, the afterlife, and the very order of the universe. Perhaps the design of the bent pyramid was not intended to be purely architectural, but was instead meant to embody a deeper spiritual or cosmic significance that was not immediately understood. It is possible that the pyramid, as conceived, was seen as too ambitious or too connected to a mystical, divine plan, one that may not have been fully realized in the physical realm. There are also those who believe that the bent pyramid's unfinished nature may have been intentional, a deliberate decision to leave it in a state of incompletion. Some have suggested that the pyramid was never meant to be a traditional tomb at all, but rather a temple or sacred space designed to embody the transition from one state of being to another, representing a spiritual journey rather than a final resting place. In this interpretation, the bending shape of the pyramid could symbolize a passage between worlds, between life and death, or even between different stages of existence. Could it be that the pyramids were not simply architectural feats, but physical representations of esoteric knowledge, a knowledge that may never have been fully shared with the public? Alternatively, could there be an even more speculative reason for the bent pyramid's design? A connection to celestial phenomena? As we've seen in previous mysteries, the ancient Egyptians had a complex understanding of the heavens and used their buildings to align with stars, planets, and constellations. Could the unusual shape of the bent pyramid have been designed with a specific astronomical event or alignment in mind, one that, for reasons lost to time, was never realized? What if the pyramid was meant to reflect a certain moment in the stars, one that was supposed to coincide with the pharaoh's passage into the afterlife, but the timing was never correct? Was the pyramid a celestial device designed to channel cosmic energy or divine influence, which could no longer be used once the stars had shifted? Adding to the mystery is the fact that the bent pyramid is located in Dashur, an area that holds a number of other unusual and fascinating structures. Close by is the Red Pyramid, Sneferu's first successful attempt at a smooth-sided pyramid. Interestingly, the Red Pyramid is thought to have been built after the Bent Pyramid, with Sneferu's architects learning from the mistakes and engineering challenges faced during the earlier project. Why, then, would Sneferu, having made such bold advancements, leave the Bent Pyramid unfinished and less grand than its successor? Even in modern times, the Bent Pyramid continues to defy full understanding. It has undergone several restoration projects, each of which brings new questions about its original purpose and design. Some researchers suggest that the pyramid's unfinished appearance is a reflection of its inherent instability, which could have led to concerns about the safety of the structure. Others speculate that a higher-level political or religious decision brought the project to an abrupt halt, perhaps a king's death or a change in dynastic priorities. But even these more grounded explanations leave much to be desired. Could there be something hidden beneath the surface of this enigmatic monument, something we have yet to discover? As we stand before the bent pyramid today, gazing at its peculiar, sloping sides, it's impossible not to feel the weight of its unfinished history. Every stone, every angle seems to beckon us to explore its purpose, to understand the forces that led to its incomplete state. But like so many mysteries of ancient Egypt, the answers remain elusive. Was the bent pyramid a failed experiment? Or was it a deliberate act of symbolic construction, one whose true meaning is still locked away? The questions linger and the mystery of the bent pyramid endures. As we step deeper into the enigmatic world of ancient Egypt, we encounter a fascinating yet cryptic realm of sacred knowledge, one that has long eluded our complete understanding: the Coffin texts. These ancient inscriptions, etched onto the inside of wooden coffins from the Middle Kingdom, circa 2000 BCE, represent a mysterious body of texts that offer a window into the spiritual beliefs, rituals, and afterlife customs of the ancient Egyptians. But, as with many aspects of Egypt's rich and complex culture, these texts raise more questions than they answer. The Coffin texts are a collection of spells and incantations, similar in many ways to the pyramid texts and later the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but they are unique in both their format and the message they carry. Where the pyramid texts were originally reserved for the royal elite, etched into the walls of the tombs of pharaohs, the Coffin texts were available to a broader range of individuals, suggesting that the afterlife was becoming a more universally accessible concept. By the time of the Middle Kingdom, the elite's monopoly on religious texts was loosening, and it was believed that anyone who could afford a coffin could now have a guide to the afterlife. Yet, for all their accessibility, the Coffin texts are steeped in mystery. They contain over 1,000 spells, many of which were intended to protect the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. The inscriptions are deeply symbolic, often referencing gods, cosmic forces, and ritualistic practices that are not fully understood today. What makes the Coffin texts so compelling, however, is not just their content, but their cryptic nature. Messages from the ancient world that seem to point toward a much deeper, hidden knowledge about death, transformation, and the universe itself. Among the most notable features of the Coffin texts is their focus on the process of becoming. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end, but a transformation. The texts guide the deceased through an intricate series of metaphysical trials, spells, and rites, aimed at ensuring their safe passage to the afterlife. These spells, many of which invoke deities like Osiris, Anubis, and Ra, often include instructions on how to navigate various challenges, such as crossing the celestial waters, defeating hostile entities, or passing judgment in the Hall of Two Truths. In the Egyptian worldview, death was not simply an entry into the next world. It was a process of becoming one with the divine, of shedding the limitations of the physical body and ascending to a higher, eternal state. And the Coffin texts reflect this profound transformation, with references to the deceased becoming a star, joining the sun god Ra in his eternal journey across the sky, or merging with Osiris, the god of rebirth and resurrection. These mystical rites point toward an understanding of death that is at once ritualistic and cosmic, and yet profoundly individual, as each deceased person must navigate their own path to divine union. But beyond their mystical language and protective functions, the Coffin texts also raise intriguing questions about ancient Egyptian metaphysics. Among the spells, we find references to concepts that seem to suggest an understanding of the universe that transcends the physical realm. Some of these texts allude to the afterlife as a kind of alternate dimension, a place where time and space do not operate according to the rules of the material world. This notion of the afterlife as a spiritual other world, where souls are not bound by the physical laws of reality, is one of the more striking elements of the Coffin texts. Could the ancient Egyptians have had a deeper, more complex understanding of metaphysical realms, ones that we are only beginning to explore in modern science? One of the most enigmatic spells from the Coffin texts, Spell 148, speaks of a journey through the Great Darkness, a space between worlds, where the soul is tested and purified before it can enter the presence of the gods. This Great Darkness is often interpreted as the chaotic void that existed before creation, and navigating it was seen as a necessary trial before entering the afterlife. It is a striking concept, a place where nothing exists except for the soul and the unknown, and where only the most prepared or divinely guided could survive. Some scholars speculate that the ancient Egyptians viewed this journey through darkness as a kind of metaphor for the soul's passage through time itself, as it moves through the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. But could the Great Darkness also point to something more? Perhaps a reference to alternate dimensions or a state of being beyond the physical plane, a realm that modern science might one day discover? While many of the Coffin texts seem to align with the religious beliefs found in other Egyptian texts, there are several passages that hint at ideas more abstract and less grounded in the physical world. For example, some texts reference the 4 pillars of heaven, describing a structure that holds up the sky, a motif that appears in other Egyptian religious texts. But what are these pillars? Are they simply mythological symbols? Or do they represent something more profound, such as metaphysical or spiritual forces that govern the cosmos? As we dig deeper into the mysteries of the Coffin texts, we also encounter an intriguing connection to Egypt's relationship with the stars. The texts contain numerous references to the starry realm, suggesting that the afterlife was not merely a continuation of earthly existence, but a journey among the stars themselves. Some of the texts even describe specific constellations, such as Orion's belt, which was strongly associated with Osiris. The connection between the deceased and the stars is a recurring theme, and it has led some researchers to speculate that the Egyptians' understanding of the afterlife was not just metaphysical, but astronomically grounded. Could the Coffin texts be a form of ancient astronomy, encoding not just spiritual rituals, but cosmic truths about the universe? Some have even suggested that these texts contain hints of a far older astronomical tradition, one that stretches back millennia before recorded history. Did the Egyptians possess knowledge of the stars and their movements that we have yet to fully comprehend? This celestial connection raises another question. How much of the spiritual knowledge in the Coffin texts was the result of direct experience, and how much was passed down from a far older, forgotten civilization? Some researchers point to the possibility of ancient cultural exchanges, suggesting that the Egyptians may have learned certain esoteric teachings from distant lands, or that they were the inheritors of a knowledge that predated even their own civilization. The Coffin texts are undoubtedly one of the most mystifying and profound collections of texts to survive from ancient Egypt. They reveal an intricate, multi-layered view of the afterlife, a world of gods, stars, and transformation. But they also hint at secrets that remain hidden just beyond our reach. As we examine the spells, the rituals, and the cosmic symbols embedded in the texts, we find ourselves drawn into a deeper mystery. Was this knowledge merely spiritual? Or was there a more profound, universal wisdom encoded in these words? What truths about the nature of existence and the cosmos have we yet to uncover, hidden within the cryptic language of these ancient inscriptions? The Coffin texts, in their complexity and their mystery, challenge us to reconsider our understanding of ancient Egypt, not just as a civilization of pyramids and pharaohs, but as a society that may have had access to knowledge that reaches far beyond the limits of our imagination. And in that mystery, they beckon us to ask, what other secrets lie buried beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered? As we move from the cryptic messages of the Coffin texts, we find ourselves drawn once again into the spiritual cosmos of ancient Egypt, a world governed not just by kings and pharaohs, but by deities whose powers were said to shape the very fabric of existence. The ancient Egyptians were a civilization obsessed with the divine, but what is most fascinating about their pantheon of gods is how these beings transcended mere myth and became tangible, living forces in the daily lives of the people. Among these gods, there are those who stand apart, the Shining Ones. These beings, often described as luminescent or radiant, are central to many of the ancient texts, yet they remain elusive figures whose true nature is shrouded in mystery. The Shining Ones are often mentioned in religious texts, such as the Pyramid texts and the Coffin texts, but they remain enigmatic. They are sometimes described as celestial beings, whose radiant light illuminates the heavens, and their roles are sometimes linked to cosmic events, like the cycles of the sun, the stars, and the afterlife. It is this association with light and radiance that gives them their name, and it hints at a level of divine power that goes far beyond mere human understanding. But who were these beings really? Were they gods in the traditional sense, or something altogether different? In many ways, the Shining Ones appear to represent an archetype of divine transcendence. Their luminosity is not just a physical characteristic, but a symbol of purity, spiritual enlightenment, and an elevated state of being. They are often described as powerful forces that transcend earthly boundaries, standing outside the conventional structures of time and space. In this sense, their shining nature could be understood as a metaphor for their connection to higher, more incomprehensible realms, the heavens, the stars, and the forces of creation itself. Could they be reflections of ancient Egyptian understanding of the cosmos? Or is there a deeper truth hidden in these descriptions? One of the most famous depictions of the Shining Ones comes from the mythological accounts of the sun god Ra. In these texts, Ra is said to travel across the sky in his boat, accompanied by a host of radiant beings who assist him in his journey. These beings are sometimes referred to as the gods of the sun's disk, shining with an ethereal light that rivals the brilliance of the sun itself. The association with Ra is significant, as the sun god was considered the most powerful deity in the Egyptian pantheon, governing both the physical and metaphysical worlds. The Shining Ones, in their role as his companions, are portrayed as being integral to maintaining cosmic order and supporting the journey of the sun through the heavens. But this association raises further questions. Could the Shining Ones be more than just celestial attendants to Ra? Are they representations of a specific type of divine intelligence, perhaps beings of light or energy, who were believed to have the ability to manipulate the forces of the universe? Some scholars suggest that the Shining Ones may represent a class of gods or divine entities whose primary function was to act as intermediaries between the human and the divine realms. In this sense, they were not gods in the typical anthropomorphic sense, but were perhaps beings that existed beyond the confines of human understanding, agents of the divine order, whose roles were more abstract and far-reaching than those of more familiar deities like Osiris, Isis, or Anubis. The idea that the Shining Ones might not have been fully human or even humanoid adds another layer of intrigue to their mystery. Some fringe theories suggest that these gods may have been actual extraterrestrial beings that came from the stars and were able to influence the physical world through their advanced knowledge and technology. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that the ancient Egyptians had an almost mystical relationship with the stars and celestial bodies, which were thought to be the domain of the gods. The shining ones, as beings associated with light, could be viewed as representations of celestial or cosmic visitors, beings whose connection to the stars was not just symbolic, but literal. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians were in contact with beings from other realms, whether from distant planets or dimensions, whose technologies and abilities were so advanced that they appeared divine to the people of the time? This idea, while speculative, is rooted in a long tradition of ancient astronaut theories, which suggest that many ancient civilizations had contact with extraterrestrial entities who influenced their development. In Egypt, this notion is fueled by the mysterious construction of the pyramids and other monuments, which some believe could not have been built with the tools and knowledge available to the ancient Egyptians alone. However, it is important to note that there is no definitive evidence to support such claims. What we do know is that the Shining Ones were deeply embedded in the religious consciousness of the ancient Egyptians, and their association with the cosmos cannot be ignored. For the Egyptians, the universe was a finely balanced, ordered system, and the gods, particularly those who emanated light, were the forces that ensured its harmony. The Shining Ones, as agents of Ra, could have been viewed as necessary to maintain that cosmic balance, their radiant presence ensuring the stability of both the heavens and the earth. Despite their central role in Egyptian mythology, the true nature of the Shining Ones remains unclear. The religious texts give us tantalizing glimpses of their power and significance, but they do not offer definitive answers. Were the Shining Ones simply gods of the sky and stars, or were they something more? Some scholars believe that the Shining Ones might have been an abstract representation of divine forces or principles, rather than literal beings. These divine principles could include ideas such as the soul's ascent to the heavens, or the process of spiritual enlightenment, concepts that transcend the physical world and hint at an underlying metaphysical reality. This ambiguity also raises further questions about the role of light in ancient Egyptian religion. The Egyptians were obsessed with the sun, with Ra being the ultimate symbol of life and creation. But they also believed that the sun was not just a physical entity, it was a manifestation of divine power and cosmic order. The Shining Ones, in their association with light, could therefore be seen as embodiments of this divine power, a reflection of the idea that light itself is a conduit for spiritual energy, a medium through which the gods communicated their will to humanity. As we delve into the mystery of the Shining Ones, we are left with more questions than answers. Were these beings divine, extraterrestrial, or something else entirely? What truths about the universe and the nature of existence did the ancient Egyptians embed in their descriptions of the Shining Ones? And what does their enduring presence in the ancient texts tell us about the spiritual beliefs of this remarkable civilization? The answers may be buried in the sands of time, but the allure of the Shining Ones remains as strong as ever, calling us to look deeper, to consider what might lie beyond the known universe, and to wonder what truths about the cosmos and the divine remain hidden just beyond our grasp. As we continue our exploration of ancient Egypt's most cryptic wonders, we arrive at a fascinating yet puzzling ritualistic object, one that has long been shrouded in both religious significance and technological intrigue: the sun bark. These ceremonial ships, or barks, were vessels that carried the gods across the sky in the Egyptian mythos. But the sun bark in particular, associated with the journey of Ra, the sun god, has captivated scholars for centuries. What is most curious, however, is the dual nature of this object. While it is widely accepted that the sun bark was used in ritual, there are elements of its design that hint at something far more complex. Was it a ceremonial object, a divine vehicle of the gods, or was it perhaps something more, a mysterious machine, possibly linked to ancient technologies lost to time? The sun bark is traditionally understood as the solar bark of Ra, an emblematic vessel said to carry the sun across the sky during the day and through the underworld at night. According to Egyptian mythology, Ra sailed this boat across the sky, making the journey from east to west, only to be swallowed by the primordial serpent, Apep, at night before being reborn at dawn. The bark is mentioned in numerous texts, and its depiction is commonly found in tombs and temples, particularly those of the New Kingdom. These ships were intricately designed, adorned with symbols of divine protection, and portrayed as vessels of light and cosmic order. But it's not just the religious function of the sunbark that piques curiosity. It is the underlying mystery of its design and function. Some of the most intriguing details come from the solar bark of the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, which is one of the best preserved examples of such a vessel. The bark, made of wood and adorned with gold, depicts a divine journey, a celestial trek, and reflects the profound importance of Ra's daily passage through the sky. Yet something about these descriptions and designs doesn't fully align with the more conventional explanations of Egyptian ritual. Many scholars have pointed out the ship-like nature of the sunbark, but the vessel's depiction hints at a much more complex function. Unlike other Egyptian religious objects, the sunbark is frequently shown in positions and angles that suggest a kind of motion, almost as if it could be more than a simple ceremonial symbol. This raises questions. Was it a ritualistic object, or did it serve some practical, mechanized purpose that we don't yet understand? Was it perhaps a real ship, or something else entirely? A sophisticated machine, a celestial craft capable of traversing more than just metaphorical boundaries. To better understand this mystery, we need to consider the context in which the sunbark appears. It was commonly depicted in temple reliefs and tombs, often seen alongside figures of gods such as Ra or even pharaohs, who were believed to be the earthly embodiments of divine power. The depictions are often accompanied by incantations that speak of the journey of Ra as he made his passage through the sky and underworld. These ritual texts, such as those found in the Book of the Dead or the Pyramid texts, suggest that the sunbark was integral to the understanding of the cosmic order and the passage of time. Yet, what if these representations were not just spiritual but literal? Some fringe theories propose that the sunbark could have been more than just a metaphysical object tied to religious practices. Could it have been a mechanical device, perhaps an ancient form of spacecraft or airborne vehicle designed to facilitate the journey of the gods not just through the heavens but through space itself? It is a question that requires us to think beyond conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian religion and technology. Theories regarding the possible technological nature of the sunbark often tie into ideas about ancient Egypt's lost knowledge and the possibility of extraterrestrial influence. The ancient astronaut theory, for example, posits that some of the advanced knowledge of the Egyptians, particularly in the realms of architecture, astronomy, and engineering, could have been handed down by beings from other worlds. Could the design of the sunbark have been influenced by extraterrestrial beings using advanced technology far beyond the capabilities of ancient Egypt? Such speculation arises, in part, from the precision of the astronomical knowledge embedded in Egyptian myth and their ability to map the stars with extraordinary accuracy. Ancient Egyptians were meticulous in their study of the night sky, aligning their pyramids with certain constellations, such as Orion, which was deeply associated with Osiris. If the Egyptians were able to design temples and pyramids with such precision, could their sunbarks also be the product of an advanced understanding of space travel? Could these ships be more than just divine symbols? Could they, in fact, represent a kind of ancient craft used to travel across the sky, either in a literal or symbolic manner? Of course, there are more grounded explanations. Egyptologists typically suggest that the sunbark was purely a ritualistic symbol, a manifestation of the Egyptian belief that the gods themselves were capable of crossing between realms. The sunbark was often depicted in religious processions, where priests would carry effigies of the sun god in ritual boats. These boats, despite their intricate designs and craftsmanship, were most likely symbolic of the journey of Ra, the divine cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, as well as the eternal nature of the soul's passage through the afterlife. However, even with this more conventional interpretation, the mystery of the sunbark's origins remains unsolved. Was it a purely symbolic object created for the gods, or was it something else? Perhaps an ancient machine capable of functioning in ways that we can barely comprehend today. Could the sunbark have been a precursor to technology that we are still struggling to understand? When we examine the architecture of Egyptian temples, with their highly precise alignments to celestial events and constellations, it's hard to shake the idea that there was more to ancient Egyptian knowledge than simply myth and ritual. The ancient Egyptians were sophisticated in their understanding of the heavens, creating monuments and religious symbols that connected the terrestrial with the celestial. But did their knowledge extend to practical applications that were capable of technological feats? In the end, the mystery of the sunbark remains open, as elusive as the gods themselves. Was it a simple ceremonial object, a vessel for divine worship? Or was it perhaps a clue, something that points to a far more advanced understanding of the cosmos, an understanding that transcends our current grasp of both history and technology? As we continue to uncover the secrets of the ancient Egyptians, we are forced to ask ourselves, what could they have known, and what truths might still be hidden within the sands of time? The sunbark, with its radiant symbolism and enigmatic purpose, calls us to look deeper, to question the very nature of ancient knowledge and its potential implications. As we shift our focus from the celestial and the divine to the terrestrial mysteries of ancient Egypt, we find ourselves once again immersed in the labyrinthine depths of history, both literal and metaphorical. The underground labyrinth, a hidden city of unimaginable scale and complexity, is a topic that has long intrigued historians, archaeologists, and adventurers alike. Descriptions of this city, or cities, echo through the halls of ancient texts, hinting at a place of great significance, possibly buried deep beneath the sands of Egypt. But was it a real place, or merely a myth passed down through generations? For centuries, references to the labyrinth have existed in the writings of Greek and Egyptian historians, the most famous being the account by Herodotus, who described a vast structure near the Fayum oasis, an area known for its ancient wonders. Herodotus claimed that the labyrinth consisted of 3,000 rooms, and that its walls were adorned with intricate carvings and paintings depicting scenes of Egyptian life and gods. The labyrinth, he wrote, was so elaborate and complex that no man could traverse its passageways without losing his way. This description has echoed through time, fueling speculation that beneath the desert, a long-lost world exists, waiting to be unearthed. Yet, despite the vivid descriptions and the tantalizing possibility that such a structure once stood in Egypt, no definitive evidence has ever been found to confirm the existence of the underground labyrinth as a physical site. Archaeologists have searched for years, but no excavations have led to a structure matching the grandiosity described by Herodotus. And so, the question persists. Was it a myth, an exaggeration, or an ancient structure whose remains were deliberately concealed? Some scholars believe that the labyrinth might have been a temple or religious structure, perhaps one dedicated to the gods of the underworld. The ancient Egyptians had a profound relationship with the realm of the dead, and many of their most sacred rituals and myths centered around the afterlife. If the labyrinth was indeed a real place, it might have been a place of initiation or pilgrimage, a subterranean temple where the living could interact with the divine through rituals and ceremonies. Its architecture, with its winding corridors and hidden chambers, would have mirrored the Egyptian concept of the underworld, a complex, shadowy realm that was equally feared and revered. But if the labyrinth was not just a ceremonial space, what might it have represented? Some have speculated that it could have been a burial complex, a vast necropolis or tomb complex, perhaps related to the pyramids, designed to protect and enshroud the sacred resting places of pharaohs and nobles. Perhaps it was an enormous system of tunnels, the entrances hidden deep beneath the earth, meant to safeguard the tombs of the powerful against tomb robbers. The mystery of the labyrinth could then be linked to the search for royal tombs, some of which have never been found. While the majority of scholars favor the idea that the labyrinth was a symbolic or religious structure, there are those who entertain a more speculative possibility, that the labyrinth was an ancient machine or some sort of engineering marvel with a function beyond the purely spiritual. This theory, while fringe, hinges on the curious descriptions of the labyrinth's architecture. The idea that it consisted of a vast system of rooms and corridors could suggest that it was a place designed for a very specific purpose, perhaps something more utilitarian than merely symbolic. Could it have been a vast power plant, a mechanism for harnessing and distributing energy, akin to the more mysterious theories surrounding the pyramids and other ancient Egyptian monuments? Some have suggested that the Egyptians were privy to technologies lost to modern civilization, machines designed to manipulate forces of nature in ways we have yet to fully comprehend. This theory opens the door to even more intriguing questions. Could the labyrinth have been built with knowledge of acoustics, magnetism, or even principles of resonance that allowed it to function as a kind of energy generator? Was it possible that the labyrinth was an ancient power source, drawing on the energies of the earth, the sun, or the cosmos? If such a technology existed, was it suppressed, forgotten, or buried deliberately, perhaps to prevent future generations from exploiting it? But these ideas take us into a realm of speculation that is difficult to substantiate with physical evidence. As we return to the more tangible aspects of Egyptian archaeology, we are reminded that Egypt is a land rich with monuments, grand structures such as the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Temple of Karnak, which were both works of staggering complexity. Could the labyrinth, then, be one of the many architectural wonders of Egypt, yet to be discovered beneath the sands? Perhaps, like many other ancient sites, it lies hidden in plain sight, its existence obscured by time and shifting landscapes. After all, Egypt is a country of shifting sands, where the line between myth and history often becomes blurred. Some have posited that the labyrinth might have been a symbolic concept rather than a literal one. Could it be a metaphor for the mystery and complexity of the afterlife? The ancient Egyptians believed that the journey through the underworld was fraught with trials and labyrinthine passages, where the soul had to navigate a series of obstacles in order to reach its final resting place. If the labyrinth was a metaphor for the soul's journey, then it would explain why the structure has never been found. It may never have been a physical place, but rather a spiritual construct. Yet there are still those who refuse to dismiss the notion that the labyrinth was a real physical location. The idea that it is lost or deliberately hidden is particularly compelling. Egypt is, after all, a land of tombs and treasures, some of which have yet to be uncovered. Could the underground labyrinth still lie beneath the earth, its vast corridors just waiting to be discovered? What might it contain? Untold secrets of the Egyptian civilization, or perhaps knowledge so powerful that it was hidden away for eternity? And then there are the theories that suggest the labyrinth was tied to ancient extraterrestrial contact. The Egyptians, with their intricate knowledge of the stars and their advanced architectural feats, have long been associated with the idea that they were visited by beings from other worlds. Could the labyrinth have been a structure designed for alien visitors, or perhaps even a place of contact between the gods and the people? Some fringe theorists believe that the ancient Egyptians were guided by higher intelligence, and the labyrinth may have been a place where this intelligence could be accessed. where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms were not as rigid as we understand them today. As the search for the underground labyrinth continues, we are left with far more questions than answers. Was it a sacred space of initiation, a burial complex, a lost city, or something far more complex, an ancient machine, or a spiritual symbol? The clues remain tantalizingly out of reach, buried in the sands of Egypt, waiting to reveal their secrets to those who dare to uncover them. The true nature of the labyrinth remains one of Egypt's most enduring mysteries, one that will continue to haunt our imaginations as we seek the hidden truths of this ancient civilization. As we move deeper into the mysteries of ancient Egypt, one of the most striking and perplexing phenomena lies in the faces of its rulers, the repeating pharaoh faces. Across temples, tombs, and monuments, we often find the same faces, the same features, repeated again and again, even when different pharaohs are involved. These repeated depictions appear not as mere artistic choices, but as deliberate, calculated symbols. They raise a series of questions. What is the significance of these identical faces? Why are pharaohs depicted so similarly, despite their distinct reigns? Could there be a hidden meaning behind these repeated representations, something that transcends mere likeness? The most famous example is the face of Ramesses II, often regarded as one of the greatest pharaohs of the New Kingdom. His likeness appears on numerous monuments, from the Abu Simbel temples to statues, and across a multitude of temples, tombs, and even coins. Ramesses' features, especially his prominent nose, chiseled jaw, and powerful eyes, seem almost identical, as if the same sculptor created his image time and time again. But this isn't limited to Ramesses. Throughout Egyptian history, we find this pattern, faces of rulers reappearing with startling similarity across dynasties and monuments. At first glance, one might assume that this is simply a matter of royal tradition. Ancient Egyptians were meticulous about preserving their monarch's likeness, ensuring that the pharaoh's image was immortalized for eternity. After all, these faces were not just portraits. They were symbols of divine kingship and eternal power. The pharaohs were gods on earth, and their images were supposed to reflect not just their human features, but their divine authority. But if we look deeper, we begin to see something more, something beyond mere royal iconography. Why is it that, over several centuries, the pharaohs' faces look remarkably similar, even when they are individuals from different bloodlines? What's behind the striking uniformity? Could it be more than a stylistic trend or an adherence to convention? One theory suggests that these repeating faces represent a deliberate effort to emphasize the divine nature of the pharaohs. In Egyptian culture, the pharaoh was considered the intermediary between the gods and the people. His face was not just his own, it was meant to reflect the face of Ra, the sun god, or perhaps even Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The repetition of the same features across different rulers might be a way of underscoring the pharaoh's role as a vessel for divine power. Each ruler's face was designed to invoke the eternal presence of the gods, making them look less like individual mortals and more like eternal, unchanging deities. But what if the repeating faces weren't just symbolic? What if they were a form of ancient code? Could the uniformity in these depictions be tied to a deeper, hidden meaning, one that has eluded historians for millennia? Consider the possibility that the faces themselves are more than just representations of divine kingship. What if, behind the sculptor's chisel, there's a deliberate attempt to communicate something else, a secret or message hidden in plain sight? Some researchers have pointed out that these repeated faces might be ritualistic in nature, designed to ensure the pharaoh's immortality. The same way that the pharaoh's tombs and the elaborate burial rituals were meant to guarantee their continued existence in the afterlife, so too could the faces have been a form of symbolic protection. Perhaps these images were meant to act as anchors, ensuring the pharaoh's presence was sustained in the world of the living long after death. In this context, the repeated use of the same faces could represent an eternal continuity, the idea that the pharaoh's power transcended generations. As new rulers came to power, they may have felt the need to reinforce this continuity through the symbolism of shared likeness. Their faces, then, weren't just images of themselves, but representations of a larger, unbroken lineage, a divine cycle that spanned across time. There's also the intriguing possibility that these faces were intended to communicate a mystical or spiritual concept. Egyptian religion was rich in symbolism and layered meaning. Could the repetitive faces reflect a deeper connection to the metaphysical world, perhaps tied to an ancient understanding of the universe that we can only begin to comprehend today? Some fringe theorists speculate that the faces might encode astrological knowledge, or even align with the positions of the stars, creating a celestial map hidden within the sculpted features of the rulers. Were these faces part of a larger celestial calendar, marking key moments in Egyptian history, or even the rise and fall of rulers? Such ideas are tantalizing, but they remain speculative. The ancient Egyptians left behind a wealth of symbols and codes in their art, but many of these remain shrouded in mystery. Could these repeating faces be another piece of that puzzle? Could they be a keystone to unlocking lost knowledge about the Egyptian worldview, their understanding of the cosmos, or even their understanding of the human soul? Then there's the intriguing possibility that these faces were not simply symbolic or ritualistic, but rather a reflection of something more practical or political. The repetition of certain features might have been used to reinforce the legitimacy of new rulers, giving them the divine aura of their predecessors. If a new pharaoh took power, especially in a time of political upheaval, might repeating the same face as the previous rulers have been a way to assure the populace of the continuity of power. By using the same iconic features, the new pharaoh would link himself directly to his predecessors, signaling that he too was divinely sanctioned. But there are also unsettling questions that arise from this pattern. If these faces are so important, why are they sometimes distorted or altered in subtle ways? In certain depictions, the faces of pharaohs appear slightly different from one another, with small shifts in posture, expression, or even proportions. Could this be an indication that something was being hidden, or that the image was deliberately altered to serve another purpose? Are these subtle changes a form of encoded communication, telling a story about the pharaoh's reign, or perhaps a deeper, unspoken truth? As we try to piece together the meaning behind the repeating pharaoh faces, we must confront the fundamental mystery. Why has this symbolism persisted for so long, and why does it still captivate us today? Were these faces simply a means to immortalize the pharaoh? Or were they part of a grander, more complex system, one that we have yet to fully uncover? Like so many elements of ancient Egypt, the repeating faces of its pharaohs present a riddle. And like the many other mysteries surrounding this ancient civilization, the true meaning behind these symbols may remain hidden beneath the layers of history, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. As we continue our exploration of the unfathomable mysteries of ancient Egypt, we turn our attention to one of its most intricate and lesser-known wonders: the temple doors. The grand temples of Egypt, monuments to the gods and the pharaohs, were constructed with unparalleled skill and precision. But among the many marvels these temples hold, one feature remains particularly perplexing: the mysterious mechanisms that allowed their doors to open and close. These doors, made of stone and often weighing several tons, were not operated by the simple strength of manpower, nor were they opened in the ways we would expect. Instead, they seem to have been equipped with some form of hidden technology, a mechanism that continues to baffle researchers to this day. Imagine, for a moment, walking through the ancient halls of a temple. The air is thick with incense, and the shadows of gods and kings stretch across the walls, carved in intricate detail. At the far end of the temple stands a massive stone door. Unlike the ordinary doors of today, this one is not swung open by a simple push or pull. No, this is a door that must have had a deeper, more sophisticated method of operation, something far beyond the capabilities of ordinary technology. Egyptian temple doors were designed to be monumental in both size and symbolism. The most famous examples can be found at the Temple of Karnak and the Temple of Luxor, where these colossal doors would have once opened to reveal inner sanctuaries, which only the priests and the pharaohs themselves were allowed to enter. But despite their size, these doors were not operated in the way you might expect. There were no hinges or typical mechanisms to open them. So the question arises, how were they moved? What ancient technology could have powered such massive stone portals? Scholars have long speculated that these doors were operated by hydraulic systems, but no definitive evidence has been found. The concept itself is not without merit. Ancient cultures around the world, including the Egyptians, are known to have utilized water in some of their technological marvels. Some experts point to the possible use of water pressure to activate systems that could lift or shift the enormous stone doors. This might have been achieved by filling reservoirs behind the doors with water, which would, under the right conditions, force the doors open, using the weight and pressure of the water itself. However, such a theory raises more questions than it answers. How did they manage to engineer such a system so precisely? How did the Egyptians control the water pressure with such accuracy? And what materials would they have used to prevent leaks or damage to the system? And perhaps most mysteriously, why would the ancient Egyptians have gone to such lengths to conceal the mechanisms of their doors? Another theory suggests that the temple doors might have used a form of counterweight, similar to the mechanisms used in ancient Greece and Rome, but adapted in a more intricate way. Counterweights, which use the force of gravity to help lift heavy objects, could have been attached to the doors. Perhaps ropes, pulleys, or even a system of gears were hidden from view, their purpose concealed behind the stone walls or within the doors themselves. Yet, no physical evidence of these mechanical devices has ever been uncovered in the context of Egyptian temple doors. Could the Egyptians have used a technology so advanced that it has simply been lost to time? Could their understanding of mechanics and hydraulics have been far more sophisticated than we have given them credit for? Some researchers propose that the methods used to operate these doors were deliberately kept secret, intended only for the priests and the pharaoh, as a sign of their divine authority. Was there a sacred knowledge, passed down from one generation of priests to the next, that allowed them to maintain control over these hidden technologies? Could the doors themselves have been part of a grander ritual, a mystical device that kept the mysteries of the inner sanctum where only the gods and the pharaoh could dwell, hidden from the unworthy? The question becomes even more intriguing when we consider the symbolism behind the doors themselves. In many Egyptian temples, the doors weren't just functional, they were part of the spiritual architecture of the site. The opening of these doors was a powerful ritual act symbolizing the passage between the mortal world and the divine. To open the door was to allow access to sacred spaces where only the purest could enter, where the pharaoh would commune with the gods. Was there more to the door's operation than simple physical mechanics? Could the act of opening these doors have been tied to something more metaphysical? Something that involved energies beyond our understanding? It's in this space between the known and the unknown that some more speculative theories emerge. Could these doors have been designed not only as physical barriers, but as keys to hidden realms, potentially linked to the astronomical or cosmic alignments that many of Egypt's most sacred sites are known to exhibit? What if these doors were part of a larger system of cosmic symbolism, acting as a physical and metaphysical gateway between the earthly realm and the heavens? Consider the alignment of the Temple of Karnak, which faces east, perfectly aligned with the sun's path during the winter solstice. Could the doors of such a temple have been engineered to open at specific times to coincide with celestial events? Was this act of opening not merely mechanical, but part of a larger cosmic ritual that connected the earthly realm to the divine? If so, how much more was the temple door mechanism than a mere technological device? Could it have been part of a greater cosmic machinery, designed to channel divine energy or invoke the gods themselves? And then there are the more fringe theories. Some have suggested that the Egyptians were in possession of lost or suppressed technologies, mechanisms powered by forces we don't fully understand today. Were these doors part of an ancient system of energy manipulation or vibrational resonance? Some suggest that the ancients might have had access to a form of energy that could move large stone structures, an energy source that was somehow harnessed to open these heavy doors. Could these forgotten technologies be linked to the same lost knowledge that many believe underpins the construction of the pyramids? As of now, the true mechanisms behind Egypt's temple doors remain one of its most elusive secrets. No conclusive evidence has surfaced to definitively explain how these massive stone doors were moved. But the mystery of the temple doors serves as a powerful reminder that, in a civilization as old and complex as Egypt, some mysteries might be hidden beneath layers of history, waiting for the right key to unlock them. What we know for certain is that these ancient doors were not simply built to serve a functional purpose. They were a symbol of power, a portal to the divine, and perhaps a glimpse into a lost technology that might never be fully understood. The truth remains just out of reach, a mystery wrapped in stone and silence, waiting to be revealed. As we move deeper into the heart of ancient Egypt's secrets, one question remains. Who were the individuals responsible for some of the most intriguing artifacts found in the country's vast archaeological sites? Among these, perhaps none stands as enigmatic as a mysterious sarcophagus discovered in the heart of an ancient tomb. The sarcophagus itself is an astonishing structure, massive, intricately carved, and seemingly out of place in terms of its construction and style. Yet despite its imposing presence, it is the identity of its occupant, and those who left it behind, that remains shrouded in mystery. Imagine standing before this ancient stone coffin, heavy and imposing, its smooth surface marred only by the faintest traces of time's wear. A solitary artifact, sitting silently in a tomb that has long been forgotten. The stone is cold to the touch, but the air around it seems thick with questions. Who was the person sealed inside? Was it a pharaoh? A high-ranking official? Or perhaps someone with a far more obscure but equally significant role in Egypt's complex society? The sarcophagus itself seems to defy conventional understanding. While most tombs are built for kings or queens, this particular one does not match the well-known burial customs of the time. The size of the sarcophagus is unusually large, yet it lacks the markings that would normally signify royal status. Its placement within the tomb does not follow the typical alignment seen in other royal burials, suggesting that it was perhaps not intended for a pharaoh at all. And yet, it bears signs of craftsmanship that rival some of the most extraordinary tombs in Egypt, raising the question, could this tomb have been meant for someone of even greater significance, someone whose legacy was lost to time? The tomb in which the sarcophagus was discovered is not located within the Valley of the Kings, Egypt's most famous burial site for pharaohs, but instead lies within a remote area, often overlooked by modern archaeologists. Here, the absence of royal inscriptions and names only deepens the mystery. A tomb, abandoned for millennia, and yet the sarcophagus remains, untouched, as if waiting for someone to unravel its secret. In the years following its discovery, theories have abounded. Some historians have speculated that the sarcophagus may belong to one of Egypt's lesser-known rulers or high officials who never made it into the annals of history. Perhaps it belonged to a pharaoh who was overthrown before they could be properly immortalized, or even a noble whose tomb was mistakenly lost to time. There is also the theory that the sarcophagus was part of a ritual burial, meant not for a specific individual, but as a symbolic offering to the gods. In this case, the tomb itself would not have been a final resting place, but a sacred vessel for spiritual rituals, perhaps even intended to represent an ancient mythological figure rather than a living person. Yet, there are more speculative theories, ideas that have made their way into the fringe realm of Egyptology, theories which raise even more questions about the sarcophagus's true nature. One such theory involves the possibility that the sarcophagus was not just a burial chamber, but a mechanical device, a piece of ancient technology, perhaps even a key to unlocking something much greater than the tomb itself. Could this sarcophagus have once served a purpose beyond the mortal realm? Was it part of a ritual or energy system designed to transfer power or communicate with the gods? Some researchers believe that the intricate carvings and symbols on the sarcophagus are not just decorative, but might have been designed to channel some kind of energetic force. Perhaps the sarcophagus was part of a lost system of spiritual technology, intended to communicate with the afterlife or harness some type of otherworldly power. Such a theory raises even more questions. What kind of technology did the ancient Egyptians possess that might have been so advanced it could be lost to history? Did they use the sarcophagus as an instrument to tap into hidden forces? And why has no trace of this technology survived into modern times? Even more intriguing are the unusual markings that adorn the sarcophagus. These markings, while similar to those found in other tombs, appear to follow a pattern that does not match any known symbols associated with royal or even religious burial traditions. The symbols seem to reference astronomical alignments and celestial patterns, suggesting that whoever designed this sarcophagus may have been deeply influenced by cosmic forces. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians believed the stars themselves played a role in the afterlife? That the journey into the next world was not merely a terrestrial event, but something that transcended the physical plane, involving the stars themselves? Another theory suggests that the sarcophagus may not have been built for an Egyptian at all, but perhaps for a foreign figure, someone from a distant land whose tomb was placed alongside the grand Egyptian burial traditions. Ancient Egypt, as we know, was a melting pot of cultures, flooded with diplomats, traders, and mercenaries from far and wide. Was this sarcophagus meant to house the remains of a figure whose cultural background was fundamentally different from that of the pharaohs and their elite? The possibility of a foreign burial challenges our understanding of Egypt's complex social structure and invites us to wonder if the tomb was a hybrid of Egyptian traditions and those of another ancient civilization. Yet for all the theories and speculations, one thing remains certain. The identity of the person within this mysterious sarcophagus, if indeed it was meant to hold a body, remains unknown. The tomb offers no clear answers, only more questions, and the sarcophagus itself serves as an enduring symbol of the hidden truths that Egypt continues to guard. What if the sarcophagus was part of something greater? An entire burial complex that has yet to be discovered? What if it represents a chapter of Egypt's history that has been deliberately erased from the historical record, lost to time, or hidden in plain sight? The unanswered questions about the sarcophagus reflect the mysteries of ancient Egypt itself, vast, enigmatic, and as tantalizing as ever. As we continue to uncover the secrets of ancient Egypt, we must ask ourselves, what remains hidden beneath the surface? What secrets are locked away in sarcophagi like this one, waiting to reveal their truth to the world? The answers, if they ever come, may be even more profound than we can imagine as the desert winds sweep across the Nile Valley. Whispers of an ancient and elusive temple echo through the ages. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility, was one of the most revered deities in ancient Egypt. His myth, deeply intertwined with death and the promise of rebirth, has captivated scholars, historians, and archaeologists for millennia. But one question continues to remain unanswered. Where is the true burial place of Osiris? For centuries, the Egyptians spoke of a lost temple, said to have housed the sacred remains of Osiris, a site so powerful and mysterious that its very existence has become a subject of debate and speculation. The Temple of Osiris, shrouded in myth and enigma, was believed to be located at the farthest reaches of the ancient Egyptian world, somewhere in the western desert, a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred, where the god's spirit was said to reside. The story of Osiris is one of profound loss and regeneration. According to myth, Osiris was tricked and murdered by his brother Set, the god of chaos, who cast his body into the Nile, where it was carried away and hidden. Osiris's wife, Isis, searched for his body tirelessly, eventually finding it and resurrecting him long enough to conceive their son, Horus. After this miraculous event, Osiris was believed to have journeyed to the afterlife, where he became the ruler of the underworld, offering guidance to the souls of the departed. The myth of his death and resurrection became a cornerstone of Egyptian religious thought, symbolizing both the cycle of life and the hope for life after death. Yet, despite the prevalence of these myths, the location of his burial, the true resting place of Osiris, has never been definitively identified. The earliest mention of the Temple of Osiris comes from the Ptolemaic period, during the reign of the Greek pharaohs who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, wrote about a sacred shrine dedicated to Osiris, which was said to have been located near the town of Abydos, one of Egypt's holiest cities. Abydos was long considered a major religious center, and its significance grew with the myth of Osiris. The Egyptians themselves believed that Abydos was the true burial site of the god, making it a place of pilgrimage for the living, who came to pay homage and ensure safe passage in the afterlife. However, despite extensive excavations in and around Abydos, no definitive evidence has been found to confirm the exact location of Osiris's final resting place. Some archaeologists argue that the temple Herodotus described could have been buried beneath centuries of sand or constructed in a way that hid its exact location. Other scholars suggest that the temple may have been symbolic, perhaps not a physical structure at all, but a metaphysical place representing Osiris's reign in the afterlife, not tied to a specific geographical location. However, this theory does not explain the powerful desire to locate the material remains of Osiris's tomb, which was said to hold divine powers capable of ensuring the deceased's safe passage to the afterlife. Further complicating the mystery is the existence of other sites that have been proposed as Osiris's true burial place, each offering intriguing clues but no conclusive answers. One such site is Abydos's Osirion, a temple complex built by the pharaoh Seti I and later expanded by Ramses II. This structure is a massive, subterranean complex with a symbolic architecture that mirrors the journey of the soul through the afterlife. The Osirion, with its towering pillars and carved reliefs, is thought by some to be a place where the physical and spiritual realms converge, a possible burial site for Osiris himself. The fact that it is subterranean only adds to the mystery, as the tombs of many Egyptian pharaohs, including Seti I, were located near or within the complex. Could this underground structure be the site Herodotus referred to in his writings? The temple's alignment, its secretive nature, and its proximity to Abydos make this an enticing possibility. Still, there are those who doubt the Osirion's true significance, arguing that its construction dates to a much later period than the myths suggest. Could the temple have been built in an era far removed from Osiris's time, and simply aligned with the god's myth for symbolic purposes? These uncertainties further fuel the debate about the true location of the burial site. Yet, what is perhaps even more perplexing is the suggestion that Osiris's tomb might not be located anywhere in Egypt at all. Some fringe theorists believe that the burial place of Osiris might lie in a remote corner of the desert, far from the conventional boundaries of Egypt's known lands. In the western desert, beyond the reach of the Nile, there are regions that remain largely unexplored, vast stretches of sand and rock that may hold ancient secrets buried for millennia. Could these desolate lands be hiding the ultimate truth of Osiris's final resting place? Is the temple and tomb lost not due to neglect or time, but because it was hidden intentionally, its location concealed to protect it from grave robbers or invaders? If so, might the tomb be waiting for the right moment to be revealed, just as Osiris himself rose from the dead? Another theory, which has captured the imagination of some modern-day seekers, posits that the Temple of Osiris could be related to ancient knowledge, perhaps even lost technologies. The location might be encoded in the many ancient texts and carvings found in tombs, temples, and sacred sites, hidden in plain sight by those who believed Osiris's influence was eternal. Could the temple contain secrets far more profound than we imagine, offering answers to questions about human origins, spiritual ascension, or even astronomical alignments? What is clear, however, is that the search for the true burial place of Osiris continues to captivate archaeologists and adventurers alike. Despite the many clues and leads, Osiris remains elusive, his final resting place still a mystery that continues to be studied, searched for, and debated. So, where is the true burial place of Osiris? Is it hidden beneath the sands of Abydos, waiting to be uncovered? Or is it somewhere else entirely, in a land forgotten by time, protected from those who seek it? The ancient Egyptians believed that the gods left mysteries for the living to unravel, and perhaps Osiris's tomb is the ultimate enigma, a puzzle that will only reveal its secrets when the time is right. As the sun begins its descent behind the Abydos hills, casting long shadows across the land, a peculiar structure rises from the earth, silent and ancient. Known as the Osirion, this subterranean temple stands as a testament to Egypt's deep religious and architectural legacy, its intricate carvings and labyrinthine chambers drawing the curious to its doors. But beneath the weight of its massive stones and delicate reliefs, there lingers a question that has puzzled scholars and adventurers for centuries. Is the Osirion simply an ancient structure of worship, or could it be something much more? Located near the famed city of Abydos, the Osirion is often considered one of Egypt's most enigmatic sites. A temple complex that seems to defy conventional architectural understanding, it holds a deeply symbolic connection to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and fertility. According to Egyptian mythology, it was at Abydos where Osiris's body was said to have been buried after his tragic murder by his brother, Set. For the ancient Egyptians, Abydos was more than a city. It was a sacred ground, the very nexus of life and death. It was a place where the soul could travel to find its eternal rest, and it is here, deep underground, that the Osirion stands, rising as a possible tribute to the god himself. But what makes the Osirion so unusual, even among Egypt's vast array of monumental structures, is its mysterious design. Unlike most other temples of the era, which are often above ground and marked by towering columns and open courtyards, the Osirion is almost entirely subterranean, hidden beneath the earth, and difficult to access. Its grand stone blocks are unlike any other in the Egyptian world, almost as if they were constructed to withstand the ravages of time and encroaching forces, waiting for something, someone, to uncover them. As you descend into the depths of the Osirion, the first thing that strikes you is the darkness, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and the echoes of ancient voices that once filled the halls. The sheer scale of its stone structures, with intricate carvings and massive blocks that seem far more advanced than the tools available at the time, raises an unsettling question. How was it built? What knowledge lay behind the construction of this underground marvel? Scholars have long debated its purpose. The Osirion is often thought of as a ritualistic tomb, dedicated to the god Osiris. Its subterranean chambers and vast halls seem to symbolically mirror the journey of the soul through the afterlife, a journey that would pass through dark, mysterious realms before reaching the land of eternal peace. The pool of water that sits at the heart of the Osirion is seen as a reflection of the Nile, the river that the ancient Egyptians believed connected the worlds of the living and the dead. Indeed, the architectural features of the site, its intricate alignments, its depth, and its mysterious subterranean nature, suggest that the Osirion may have been a spiritual gateway to the afterlife, a place where souls could transcend their earthly existence and be reborn, just as Osiris himself had been. However, it is the peculiarities of the Osirion that spark the most fascination. It is the construction techniques used in its creation that have ignited the most theories. The stone blocks that form the walls of the Osirion are massive, some weighing over 100 tons. While the Egyptians were undoubtedly skilled in working with stone, the precision and scale of these blocks suggest a level of craftsmanship that some feel is far beyond the capabilities of even the most advanced dynastic Egyptians. The blocks fit so precisely together that they are virtually impossible to separate, a feature that has led some to wonder if the Egyptians had access to tools or knowledge that have been lost to time. Could it be that the Osirion was constructed using forgotten technologies? Or were these techniques passed down from an even earlier, unknown civilization, perhaps one with knowledge far more advanced than anything we've attributed to the ancient Egyptians? Even more compelling is the fact that the Osirion's layout bears striking similarities to the pyramids of Giza, despite being constructed centuries after the pyramids were built. The temple complex's alignment with the stars, its deep corridors, and the way the light filters through certain chambers on specific days of the year suggest that the structure may have been designed with an astronomical purpose, a concept far more complex than what we commonly associate with the ancient Egyptians. Could the Osirion have been designed as some sort of timekeeping device, a mechanism that tracked celestial bodies or even aligned with cosmic events? Is it possible that this underground temple was meant not only to serve as a spiritual gateway but also as a tool for measuring time and predicting future events, perhaps even a primitive form of a time machine? This possibility has led some fringe theorists to speculate that the Osirion could have been constructed as an ancient technological device, a place where ancient Egyptians may have attempted to manipulate time, using cosmic energies or celestial alignments to bridge the gap between the physical and metaphysical worlds. Some have even suggested that the temple's mysterious layout and unusual construction techniques could hint at the existence of advanced technologies, perhaps even from a lost civilization that predated the dynastic Egyptians. Could the Osirion, with its uncanny proportions and otherworldly design, have been part of an ancient knowledge system that we have yet to fully understand? Perhaps it is the mystery of the Osirion's true purpose that makes it so alluring. It is easy to see why some believe it to be a temple of Osiris, dedicated to the god of the afterlife, a site where the living could connect with the divine. However, as with so many of Egypt's ancient monuments, the more we uncover, the more questions arise. Was the Osirion really just a tomb? Or was it a metaphysical tool designed for something far more profound, something that reached beyond the physical world into realms unknown? As archaeologists and researchers continue to explore the depths of the Osirion, the mystery remains far from solved. Was the Osirion a sacred site tied to Osiris? Or was it something far more enigmatic, its full purpose hidden in the folds of history? The more we learn, the more it seems we have yet to discover, and the mystery of this subterranean wonder will undoubtedly continue to captivate the minds of all who seek to unravel its secrets.